If one acts basely, death is certain. If I act basely, I'll be invincible. Early in the morning, a man with a broken horn on his head lay in a short bed, while inwardly complaining about his own pathetic 1.3-meter-long legs, while secretly cursing himself for how he transmigrated into this damn world. But the next second a sharp shout rang out, "Kun Yu! What time is it? Why haven't you gotten up yet? Do you want me to ask your aunt to get you up?" The man named Kun Yu turned his head and saw a young girl with horse ears on her head, looking at him arrogantly. This is his nominal sister Longhua. Although they had no blood relation, Kun Yu lowered his head and glanced at Yuli's chest. He let out a snort. "It's a completely flat racecourse." Yuri let out a furious roar, entangled with Kun Yu, shouting, "You think you're so great just because you're the devil's child? Today I'll show you why the flowers are so red." Meanwhile, a gentlewoman with horse ears on her head was chopping vegetables in the kitchen, smiling. "Another beautiful day?" She's Yuna, Yuri's mother, former centurion of the Imperial Wild Mustang Knights. After breakfast was ready at the table, Yuna said, "Yuri, you need to be careful. Kun Yu is your brother after all." Yuri pouted, "He's not my brother. He's our enemy." Yuna frowned. "Yuri, don't say that." Kun Yu ate breakfast silently at the corner of the table. He knows Yuli was right. According to the original owner's memory, he is not only their enemy, but also the culprit responsible for the death of Yuna's husband. 11 years ago in this world, the demon gate was inexplicably opened. Countless demons surged out, attempting to invade this world, and the empire of this world united as one to drive out the demons. After a great battle, the demons were defeated and left, but they left behind their offspring. And the original owner, Kun Yu, was one of those demon children. When Kun Yu finished eating and stood up from his seat, a water cup suddenly flew towards him. It landed directly on Kun Yu's head. Yuna pointed at Kun Yu and shouted loudly, "The Empire shouldn't have adopted you bastards. You all should die." Kun Yu didn't say anything and walked toward the bedroom. He closed the door behind him and couldn't help but sigh. Everyone else had a heaven-sent start, but he was stuck with the worst. The grudge for killing his father has fully fueled his hatred. How can he still play it safe and level up? His moral standing is already very high, but what should he do next? He doesn't even have a system or anything. Just then, a strange light flickered from the broken horn on Kun Yu's body. When Kun Yu opened his eyes again, but a line of words appeared before him. The hatred system is activated. This system is unique even in the entire world of transmigration. It actually absorbs other people's negative emotions towards him to gain energy. Kun Yu couldn't help but exclaim, well, even the golden finger attracts hate. Isn't this his signature skill? You have to know, in his previous life, Kun Yu's cause of death was due to his mouth, which got him hospitalized. Then he offended a fellow patient and died after being disconnected from the tube. This system is simply tailor-made. When Kun Yu came out, he wanted to try with Yuli, but she wasn't there. Only Aunt Yuna was left. A golden opportunity. Yuli might still beat him up. At most, she would just scold him a couple of times. Thinking of this, I quickly went behind Yuna. I was going to scare her, but as soon as I got close, Yuna spun the cleaver in her hand and held it to my neck. Yuna said with a slight smile, "It's Kun Yu. What are you doing here, Goret? You're not needed here." Normally, I would have believed her. They're all powering up? What the heck, Aunt Yuna? What's going on? So you really hate yourself this much? Looking at Aunt Yuna's smile, Kun Yu felt a chill down his spine. He quickly took a step back and immediately gave a 90-degree bow, Red Bean Pace Private Marcial. Then he turned and ran straight back to the bedroom. This woman is not normal. Definitely not normal. With that level of energy, there's no way she's just like me, dark and cunning. Yandir, or a smiling tiger. No matter which one. I still made a huge profit. Can you smile? Over 1,000 units of energy in such a short time. Luke-san was right. What doesn't kill me only makes me stronger. Thinking this, he immediately opened the panel and treated himself to a fleshly nuclear bomb resistance package. He'd be tough enough to take a beating from now on. He poured all the points into Constitution. I can click up to level 22. When I try to click to level 23, I realize I don't have enough energy. Are you kidding me? It takes 1,000. How is the energy requirement increasing exponentially? Where am I supposed to get so much energy? Should I go jump around in front of Aunt Yuna? No, that's a great idea, but let's not think about it for another lifetime. If that's the case, then I can only settle for second best. Evening. Yuli, who had just arrived home from school, was changing clothes in her bedroom. Kun Yu suddenly pushed open the door. "Yuli, let's talk about life." Yuli was now only wearing her underwear. She immediately let out a loud scream. Kun Yu paused for a moment, then chuckled mischievously. "Actually, you don't have anything to hide. Really, I have everything you have. And my pectoral muscles are probably even bigger than yours." Yuli suddenly made a sound of disgust. She silently put on her clothes. Then a powerful punch landed squarely on Kun Yu's abdomen. The blow caused Kun Yu to spit out blood. Before Kun Yu could react, Longley pressed him to the ground and beat him up. When she stopped, Kunyu wiped his mouth, said, "Too light. Didn't you eat enough? Did the school cut your rations?" Actually, Kunyu had deliberately been squatting at the door eavesdropping, waiting for Yuli to change clothes before coming in to stir things up. "This is exactly the feeling I wanted." Yuli originally planned to stop, but when she heard this, her eyes instantly filled with rage. She rushed up and gave him another beating. In the end, she delivered a powerful kick. She sent Kunyu flying out of the ring. In this round, Kunyu earned 500 energy. Huge profit. But the next second, Kunyu couldn't smile anymore. He also sensed a murderous intent coming from the crack in the door. It made him break out in a cold sweat. When he looked carefully, it was Aunt Yuna peeking at him through the door crack. In a soft voice, she asked Kunyu, "It's so... What are you doing in my daughter's room?" With just one glance, the extreme resentment energy increased by more than 100, and it's still constantly rising. Kunyuran is a jerk, but he's not looking to die. He felt like his head would fly off in the next second. So, he struggled to get up and said, "I'm here to get beaten. Auntie, Longley, you all should rest early. Good night." And then he quickly slipped away. Yuli and Aunt Yuna were momentarily at a loss for words. Did it knock them silly or something? As soon as Kinyu returned to his bedroom, he grabbed a knife and started experimenting on himself. The knife broke on the spot. Kunyu was ecstatic it worked. "I've done it." The next morning, Kunyu hummed a song as he headed to school. As soon as Kinyu stepped into the school, he sensed that something was wrong. Good grief, the overwhelming energy of hatred suddenly spiked. "The entire school hates me, doesn't it? Well, isn't he that just great? Seems like the big source of energy is here. As expected, at home you rely on your parents, and when you go out, you rely on friends. This energy is coming in fast." Kinyu smiled faintly. He raised his middle finger toward the crowd. In the end, both middle fingers were raised, feeling the malice and energy around him. "This is definitely a field of leaks." Chonglei, who was not far behind Kinyu, looked at him with disdain. "How can this person be so heartless? Wasn't he quite eager to go to school before?" A voice called out to me. When I turned around to look, it was my homeroom teacher, Zio Yuran. She is the goddess teacher of the entire school, and she's also a cat-eared girl. Zio Yuran asked with concern, "Kunyu, are you alright? I heard you were feeling unwell." Kunyu quickly replied, "I'm fine, But before I could finish, I suddenly received 55 points of hostile energy. What's going on? Is this teacher a smiling tiger too? The next second he realized it was just ugly jealousy from the boys around him. So with a plan in mind, he let out a hey and threw himself into Zio Yuran's majestic chest. Ziran quickly asked with concern, "What's wrong?" "The teacher will take you to the infirmary." Kinyu didn't care about the jealous looks of the male classmates around him. He rubbed against Zio Yuran's chest and said, "There's no need to go to the infirmary. It's just lovesickness." This made Zio Yuran blush deeply. It also gave the male classmates around them a huge blow. In the end, those male classmates just looked at the ground. He silently nodded. Time quickly passed. Kinyu sat on the bench waiting for Yulei to finish school and go home together. Suddenly, a few people jumped out from the bushes. They grabbed a burlap sack and threw it over Kinyu's head. Before Kinyu could react, the sack was already over his head. In that instant, everything went black and he exclaimed, "Who the hell turned off the lights? Actually, they're all grinning inside. This is a perfect punching bag delivered right to the door. Just the right moment to try out my newly acquired experience." So Kinyu got physically involved with a few of them. But these ordinary students were no match for Kinyu. Even if they were blindfolded, it was like unleashing an unstoppable Fortune punch. One takedown. At this moment, just after coming out of the classroom, Yuli saw this scene. She immediately noticed that Kinyu had a sack over his head. Her first reaction was that Kinyu was being bullied. She immediately shouted loudly, "No one is allowed to bully Kinyu except me." Then she rushed over directly. The next second, Kinyu, who could tell friend from foe, punched her away. The male students around were stunned in fear. This guy is a berserker. He's even hitting his own people. Meanwhile, Kinyu vaguely heard Yuli's voice, but he didn't pay much attention to it. He continued to rampage. Yuli was sent flying by a flat slap and landed nearby. Kinyu threw a punch with his left and a kick with his right. It didn't take long to knock everyone down. When the sack was pulled off, it really was Yuli. Yuli then crawled up while gagging. Kinyu suddenly realized, if Aunt Yuna finds out he hit Yuli. He quickly ran over and picked up Yuli, giving her a big scolding. "Yuli, who did this to you? Who's it? I hope you get revenge." And before Yuli could react, she was knocked unconscious again. At this point, Kinyu finally sighed in relief. Yuli probably wouldn't remember hitting her, but it seems like Yuli doesn't hate me that much after all. She not only tried to help me, but her hatred for me isn't even as strong as that of the other classmates. She's really a strange girl. But still, she carried Shuli and headed towards home. When we got home, Yuli truly didn't remember being hit by Kinyu. She only vaguely remembered that she was supposed to save Kinyu, and then she passed out. He only told his mother Yuna that he was injured while distracted from practicing martial arts. In the following days, he teased his teacher to earn the hatred and energy from his classmates. He forcefully tore down a couple's nest to gain more enemy hatred and energy. He exposed the disciplinary director for secretly buying hair growth tonic to earn more hatred and energy from the director. For a time, Kunyu was like a rat crossing the street at school and home. Everyone wanted to beat him up. But Kunyu was enjoying himself all the same. And this day Kunyu arrived at school. But there wasn't a single person in sight. Today isn't a rest day, so where is everyone? Suddenly Kunyu heard cheering voices. It almost startled him. He turned around and saw it was the training field. Everyone's at the training field. Perfect, I'll go show off and catch them all at once. As soon as he entered, he heard someone shout, Eureka, go for it. Defeat him. Kunyu was stunned. Why was Longley's matter involved? But in the next moment, a figure flew out from the arena. When Kunyu looked over, his expression changed drastically as he rushed forward. He caught the falling figure. It was actually Eureka. Kunyu's face darkened as he looked toward the arena. It was a young man with dog ears growing on his head. He looked down at Longley with disdain. He said, is this all you've got? The daughter of a centurion from the Wild Horse Battalion. This is hilarious, teacher. Given Yuli's build, it's impossible for her to be injured like this by someone her age. Flashback to that morning. Early that morning, just as Kunyu was about to leave, he saw Yuli dressed in her combat gear. He joked, what day is it? Why did you bring both pieces of the Wild Knights set? Are you going to blow up the school? Yuri snorted and said. Now you're probably the only one in the school who doesn't know. Never mind, as long as you know. After today, I'll be able to join the Wild Mustang Knights. Kunyu was stunned. Aunt Yuna didn't set an age limit for her. Why does she suddenly relax it? When Yuli arrives at school, she will head to the training field to participate in the class selection competition. Her opponent is Bagsai. What they're both competing for is the spot for the Northern League representative in the high school league. With the teacher's command, the two immediately clashed on stage. Zixia was considered a strong contender among his peers, but he was still slightly inferior to Yuli. Even wearing extremely powerful mana armor, he ultimately lost narrowly to Yuli's Wild Horse Knight kick. But just as the teacher was about to announce Yuli as the victor, Zixia suddenly attacked. He launched a surprise attack from behind, severely injuring Yuli. That evening, teacher Xiao Yuan arrived at my house. Although she also wanted to cancel Xiaoyi's qualification, the school disagreed. The reason was that the competition was starting the day after tomorrow. What teacher Xiao Yuan could do, secure a guaranteed spot for Yuli at Jua University as compensation. She finally said, I'm very sorry. Wild Horse ago. This match should have been won by Yuli. Yuna smiled and said, you're too polite, teacher Xiao. The name of the Wild Mustang Knights, which represents glory, was disbanded 10 years ago. Regarding my daughter, I believe you have done your best to mediate. Xiao Yuan shook her head. What are you saying? It's the school's fault. 10 years ago, if it weren't for your unit fighting on the battlefield, how could we have the peaceful life we enjoy in Heching now? Yuna shook her head. Only this child still remembers. I promised her that, as long as she could represent the class in the competition, I would bestow upon her the title of Wild Horse Knight on behalf of the Wild Horse Knights, but she lost. Speaking of which, Yuna stood up and said, Teacher Zhao, thank you for letting me know. It's getting dark, you should head back early. Zhao nodded and was about to leave. At this moment, Kunyu approached and said, Teacher Zhao, let me walk you to the door. When they reached the door, Kunyu asked, Teacher Zhao, will Bag Xiaowei represent Class 3, Year 2 in the competition? Zhao sighed and said, on campus, we have a champion system. If no one defeats Xiaoyi before noon tomorrow, then it should be him. Why are you asking about this? Kunyu smiled, it's nothing. I just feel like I haven't been caring enough about my classmates. Speaking of which, Kunyu thought about Yuli's spirited demeanor and the heavy injuries she sustained from the sneak attack. He smiled even more brightly and said, I should work on fostering friendly relationships with my classmates. Zirian looked at Kunyu's smile, puzzled. The next day in Class 2, Year 3, Bak Xiaoyi listened to the whispers of the classmates around her. She didn't mind at all, even thinking about ignoring it. Once I participate in the competition and get a good rank, countless top universities will invite me. By then I'll soar to greatness, with beautiful women at my side. The world is mine to conquer. As for my high school classmates, by then we won't be on the same level. Who cares? Suddenly a loud crash sounded. The door to Class 2 of Year 3 was smashed open. Kunyu walked in with a mischievous smile and asked, Excuse me, is the heir of the useless merchant guild here? Zixiayi was stunned for a moment. What's a defeated dog merchant guild? The next second he realized it was an insult and roared, Who the hell is a defeated dog? Kunyu said as he walked. Whoever accepts it, I'll call them that. I'm issuing a challenge, just accept it. Ziexia was so angry he laughed. You a mere level 1 warrior, challenging my 2.7 level sky. Before Xiaoyu could finish speaking, he was grabbed by the hair by Kinyu and slammed straight onto the desk. Kinyu said sarcastically, "Oh, come on, it's just accepting a challenge." He even bowed. How polite. What a good dog, really a good dog. Bully my sister? Even if we're not related by blood, that's still not acceptable. If I don't beat you to death, your fate must be truly unbreakable. When Zhao Yur and teacher Zhao found the male lead Kun Yu, he had already invited the person who had injured his sister, Yu Lia, to the arena. At this moment, Zhao Yuran was extremely worried. 1. Level 1 rank battle 2. Level 7. Once you face him, you're definitely going to die. But what's even worse now is, the two of them are already in the ring. As a teacher, I have no right to intervene. I can only wait for the right moment to save Kin Yu. On the other hand, Xiaya is seething with rage. He shouted, "Even if you kneel and call me dad right now, I still won't let you off." Kun Yu could only think that Xiaya was so loud, he couldn't help but scratch his ear. Back Xiaoyu saw that he wasn't even wearing his combat suit and cursed. "You can't be so poor that you can't afford a combat suit, can you?" But Kin Yu looked at him with disdain. He stared at Bag Xiaoyu through his nostrils and said, "Do I need to get so formal for someone like you?" Bag Xiaoyu was furious and nearly exploded. He immediately grabbed his weapon and launched an attack with a surge of energy. The muscles on his body began to swell. With a grip on the spear in his hand, Bag Xiaoyu shouted, "From the moment you made a move against me, you were a dead man." As soon as the words left his mouth, the spear in his hand, with terrifying momentum, rushed directly toward the laid-back Kinyu. Bag Xiaoyu was confident in this strike of his. A balanced attack and defense. Even against Yu Li, he could fight head-on, a mere 1.1 weakling. But the next second he got slapped in the face. Kinyu was barehanded. He smashed Bag Xiaoyu's spear with ease. Bag Xiaoyu was stunned, exclaiming in disbelief, "Is this even something a human can do?" But that wasn't the end. Kinyu's punches showed no sign of slowing down. It directly slammed into Xiaoyu's chest. It shattered his shield on the spot. This wasn't the end. Kinyu's fist seemed to be stuck to Xiaoyu's chest. A wave of hidden force directly shook him. Xiaoyu spat out a mouthful of blood. The audience was shocked. This Kin usually so frivolous, so he's this strong. But Zhao Yun discovered that Kinyu had no intention of stopping. Moreover, his aura grew stronger and stronger. On stage, Kinyu gathered power in his right hand, as if it were radiating light. He shouted, "Next life, be a better person." Then his fists rained down on Xiaoyu. Each punch is full of power. From Zhao Yun's perspective, this is basically a one-sided beating. In just a few seconds, Bag Xiaoyu's health bar will be emptied. She quickly rushed to the edge of the ring to stop Kinyu, but Kinyu continued to beat Bag Xiaoyu as if he hadn't heard her. Zhao Yun quickly shouted, "Stop it! If you kill him, Unibai and Li will both be court-martialed." "Calm down." Having said that, he reached out and put his hand on Kinyu's shoulder. But the next second, his wrist was grabbed by Kinyu. He directly pulled Zhao Yuran in front of him. He almost punched him. Zhao Yuran didn't blame Kinyu. He said, "Trust the teacher, okay?" Kinyu turned his head and looked at Xiaoyu, who was beaten to a pulp. She nodded. Zhao Yuran let a long sigh of relief. She quickly directed the on-site personnel to send Xiaoyu to the infirmary. Leaving him here like this, he might start to smell soon. And with the matter having blown up so much, the Baekwon Merchant Guild will surely come looking for us, plus Kinyu's demonic identity. This matter will probably be difficult to resolve. Suddenly Zhao Yuran came up with an idea. Since that's the case, why not? Thinking of this, she turned to Kinyu and said, "Kinyu, would you like to represent Class 3 of Year 3 in the High School League?" Kinyu was taken aback. What is this development? Are the teachers in your world really this unpredictable? There are countless roads, but safety comes first. If driving is not done properly, loved ones will shed tears. After the dispute between the male lead Kun Yu and the cannon fodder Yai is resolved, class teacher Zhao Yuran entered the principal's office. In the principal's office, the three principals sat solemnly. When Zhao Yuran walked in, Principal Li, who was in the middle and had a tiger-like demeanor, spoke up. "Xiao Xiao, what is your opinion on the incident where Qin Yu injured someone?" Zhao Yuran slightly bowed and said, "It's understandable. After all, it was Zixi who broke the rules first by ambushing Gongli." Vice Principal Lu, who was from the Deer faction on the right, furrowed his brow. "Just because it's understandable, does that mean you can beat someone to the point of having all their bones fractured?" Before Zhao Yuran could respond, Vice Principal Yang from the Sheep faction on the left spoke first. "Such a small matter. In the end, it's still that useless Zixi from back then. You can hit others, but you can't be hit." "Lolu, what kind of hypocrite are you?" "It looks like the two vice principals are about to argue," Principal Li said. "That's true. But Kinyu's identity is special. If I say he's not wrong, the public opinion outside will probably be problematic." At this time, Zhao Yuran raised her wrist and said, "I have a suggestion, let Kinyu represent our class." The three principals looked over. Zhao Yuran had a purple-red handprint on her right wrist. Vice Principal Yang exploded on the spot. Who the hell did this? Xiao, you're a peak level 4 martial artist. Which teacher dared to lay a hand on you? Ziryuan quickly explained, it wasn't a teacher. It was when I was stopping Kinyu. He squeezed it. Even if I wasn't defending with all my might, it's impossible for an ordinary level 1 martial artist to break through my defense. So I think Kinyu is no ordinary person. He's worthy of representing our school. The principal, hearing this, became more interested. If we could really win fame, the benefits to the school would be enormous. Vice Principal Yang made the final decision. Hurry up and send him over. We can't afford to delay the competition any longer. If an arrogant person comes looking for trouble later, Ziryuan gave a playful smile. I'll send him away after I finish with Bai Xiaoi. After that, I'll leave the rest to the guest seat principal of the Bai Merchants Association. With that, she turned and left. The three principals looked helpless. Seems he not only acted first and reported later, but also used the three of them as shields. About 2 hours later, the president of the White Dog Chamber of Commerce brought Bai Xiaoi and Yuna along with Yuri gathered in the principal's office. Principal Lai cleared his throat and said, I've called you both here today, and I believe you both understand why. Then let's be frank and open about it. At this moment, Yuli was really holding back and it was quite uncomfortable. It's not her fault. The person across from her, Bai Xiaoi, really looked pitiful. In the end, Yuli couldn't hold it in and laughed. Can you do this? Bai Xiaoi with unclear speech, it was that damn little bastard. At this point, the president of the Dog Business Association also spoke. Centurion Yuna, I respect your outstanding contributions on the battlefield. My son will also apologize to your daughter. Feel free to make any requests, but please also hand over that little bastard. He didn't finish his sentence. Yuna interrupted. I can't give him to you. I've use for him. Hearing this, the Grandmaster's face darkened. So it's a no. Yuna, calling you Centurion is a courtesy. That little brat Kinyu, you'd better give him to me, or I'll have him killed, even if I have to hire someone. Everyone knows that after the Great War 10 years ago, you're the only one left alive from the Wild Horse Knights. The Knights are practically extinct. Who do you think you're acting tough with? Upon hearing this, Yuri, who had always admired the Wild Horse Knights, instantly became enraged. In the end, she jumped up. She raised her fist and aimed it at the president of the Self-Dog Association. But in the next moment, she was directly held back by Wu Na, who grabbed her shoulder. Yuna smiled slightly and said, President Bai, can I take this to mean that you're threatening the direct family members of the Knight Troop? As soon as these words were spoken, the faces of everyone in the room, except for Yuli, changed drastically. If this crime is really confirmed, it would be a heavy crime punishable by death. Even the president panicked on the spot. No, it's not true. Kinyu is just a demon, not a direct family member of the Knights Templar. Vice Principal Yang took a puff of his cigarette. I figure that was such a huge accusation. The Bai Trading Company has already completely lost. Everyone knows the Knights are all crazy protectors of their kin. If they find out that a direct family member of a Knight was threatened, even the king couldn't save them. And right now, the most prominent figure, the vice commander of the Gale Knights, Raymond. I heard he had a pass with Centurion Yuna. Look, Grandmaster Bai is silent. Yuna Patty. The two of them stood up. Yuna said, since the president has no objections, then we'll be leaving. The president still felt reluctant and said, but Yuna, that little bastard, he's not one of us. He's a demon. One day he'll go crazy and kill us all. Yuna, upon hearing this, said, I made a bet with someone. A bet on whether this child would awaken his true nature and become one of those monsters again. Vice Principal Yang curiously asked, so you bet he wouldn't go crazy? Hearing this, Yuna laughed. No, I'm betting he'll go crazy. Then everything will be settled. Meanwhile, our protagonist, Kunyu, was frantically sneezing on the bus to the league. There were 4 school buses, 2 rows abreast, heading to the venue. Kunyu glanced out the window. He saw a girl sitting by the window on another bus. The girl met his gaze. Quickly turning his head, his face full of fear, Kunyu immediately understood. She figured out I'm a demon. She has good judgment. Many people still think I'm a cuckold, when clearly I'm a pure love warrior. But since she recognized me, let's tease her a bit. So he used his smile, even more villainous than a villain's. He said to the girl, I'm a demon disguised as a minotaur. Here, exterminate all the Chiank and hail the demon legion. At this moment, Kunyu's image in the girl's eyes was simply a demon descending upon the world. Oh right, he was a demon to begin with. The girl was so scared that she lost all reason. She went straight for the driver's steering wheel, screaming, a demon has infiltrated. Stop the bus. In an instant, the bus the girl was on swayed violently, almost tipping into the ditch. At this moment, Kunyu, concealing his merits and fame, felt the energy points brought by hatred. Wasn't exhilarating. Happy times are always short-lived. Before long, Taba sent everyone to the competition site. Kunyu looked at these people and fell silent for a moment. This isn't a competition site at all. It's clearly a leak field. It must be harvested. Suddenly, an energy with over 1,000 hatred points surged out. Kinyu was stunned. This familiar energy point, could it be? Looking again, it was indeed Aunt Yuna who brought Yuri here. Seeing Yuri's rare happy smile, I knew I had to reciprocate somehow. Thinking that I gave Yuri the middle finger, Yuri was instantly furious. She could only spit furiously at Kinyu. Kinyu secretly nodded. She could still get angry. It seems that Yuli's body has almost recovered. When everyone arrived at the venue, the goofy-looking host began the opening ceremony. He shouted, "Ladies and gentlemen, fellow citizens of Wuxing Continent, the Northern Region High School League officially begins. This competition is sponsored by all the cities in the north, plus 123 merchant guilds, jointly funded with 31 night orders. Now let's invite the 24 night order commanders who have arrived to appear." For a moment, thunderous applause erupted from the audience, and everyone's gaze involuntarily turned to one side where the commanders of the night orders representing the Empire's highest honor were located. Everyone in the stands stood up and struck their chests in unison. He shouted, "Glory! Unity!" Kunyu looked at the scene speechlessly. It was just like the pyramid schemes he saw in his past life. The dog-headed host continued shouting loudly, "Humans and orcs have united to resist the countless invasions of foreign enemies. This is you. And hope is the new star that illuminates the future path of all ethnic groups. Now let's welcome the top students from all schools in the northern region, a total of 1,358 people. They make their dazzling appearance. When Kinyu saw there was a special appearance segment, he knew he had to come up with a performance, earn some energy. This man just beat up a classmate badly. The next second, he's representing the school in the regional tournament. On the field, the enthusiastic host finishes the opening speech, then each contestant takes the stage to introduce themselves. Although each person only has 5 seconds, it's enough to make a name for themselves in the entire northern region. Look at those who went on stage one by one before me. They all have the same look, fighting for glory. The human race will forever endure. Witness my appearance. When the male protagonist Kunyu took the stage, he smirked. "Let me show you all what I've got." He simply raised his hands. 2 middle fingers shot straight up. Then he roared, "Fuck." This completely stunned everyone in the stands. Is this person really that brave? Even Wooly is holding her face in shock. The 3 principals and Zhao Yuran also arrived at the venue. Principal, he asked, is somewhat confused. "Teacher Zhao, do you think Kun is under too much pressure?" Zhao Yuran really wanted to say that he is usually like this, but she didn't say it out loud. After introducing more than 1,000 participants, the dog-headed host will continue to explain the rules of the competition. This time over 1,300 contestants will head to Star Island for a 7-day elimination round. Upon landing on the island, 3 days' worth of food will be provided, after which the contestants must fend for themselves. Additionally, over 10,000 beasts and monsters have been released on Star Island, and there are plenty of killing machines. Their strengths range from level 1 to 5. They possess special energy spheres within their bodies. Among those who are not eliminated after the competition, the more energy spheres one has, the higher their score will be. Finally, the top 100 will be selected to participate in the tournament. After saying that, he pointed the countless small spheres floating in the sky. He said, "These are medical spheres. It can broadcast the performance of each trainee, and even save your lives in critical moments. But once the medical ball is thrown, it means you have been eliminated. Alright, let's send you to the competition arena now." He then turned to a nearby bear man and said, "Sound, go ahead." Sound, I took 2 steps forward and raised a hand. Mysterious runes appeared beneath his feet. A huge dome of light enveloped all over 1,000 students in the field. Then the light flickered, and over 1,000 people in the field collectively disappeared. When they reappeared, the trainees have already appeared on a passenger plane flying in the sky. Kinyu silently nodded to himself. It seems that the technique used by that bear big is a martial skill for external use of this world's Kwai. Interesting. Suddenly someone shouted, "There's a demon." Kinyu was startled. "A demon? Where's the demon?" Then he saw everyone staring at him. That's when he realized he was the devil. Well, never mind. The trainees didn't hesitate for long. They quickly swarmed toward Kinyu in groups. Kinyu's mind went blank. It seems like it's not fine after all. Outside the arena, Yuna sat in the audience with Yuli, watching the live broadcast on the big screen. Longley asked Mother, "Do you think Kinyu can get a good ranking?" Longley replied without hesitation, "No." Yuli questioned why. "He's not weak. I might not even be his match." Yuna sighed, "It doesn't matter how strong he is. This is the Northern District. It's directly connected to the Demon Gate. It's resisted demons for 1,000 years. Do you think in a place that intensely hates demons, other contestants can help him achieve good rankings?" Yuri pouted, somewhat unconvinced but not knowing how to refute it. In the end, she could only watch the big screen and silently cheer for Kinyu. Kinyu was already fighting with the other contestants in the cabin. He repeatedly tried to claim he was an innocent bystander, a cuckold, but nobody believed him. He finally gave up trying to explain. He slapped the person who had caught up to him in the face. Then he leaped up shouting trash and jumped out of the crowd. The person who had fallen retorted, "Who are you calling trash?" When everyone looked at Kinyu again, he somehow pulled out a parachute bag and held it in his hand. Then he smirked and said, "Don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about you." He then strapped the bag to his back. For some reason, the others suddenly had a bad feeling in their hearts upon seeing this. Immediately after, Kinyu gave a thumbs up and said, "It's all of you here. You're all trash." At this moment, the other trainees on the plane were instantly furious. They wished they could swallow Kinyu alive. But Kinyu suddenly inexplicably waved his hand. Then he punched the side of the plane. Immediately a large hole appeared. Numerous trainees had no idea what happened, and they were all thrown out. Kinyu, with a smile on his face, continued to fall. The spectators in the stands were stunned. What kind of unconventional move is this? The trainees falling from high altitude were immediately judged by the medical balls to be in extreme danger. They were eliminated on the spot and disappeared from the field. Meanwhile, Kinyu opened his parachute. He looked around at the trainees who were disappearing one by one. He nodded. This medical orb is pretty useful. But this time Kunyu's energy surged. None of those eliminated didn't hate him. The audience in the stands were also amazed. Such a cheap fighting style is unheard of. He eliminated a large group before even reaching the field, while Kinyu steadily arrived at a forest in the competition area. Yuri saw the scene. Just as she was about to excitedly exclaim, the man next to her almost fainted on the spot. There was nothing he could do. At his school, 9 elite students were all knocked out of the competition by Kinyu with 1 punch each. If he didn't drop dead from anger, it would be a miracle. Turning her head, Yuli was also shocked, because on the screen Kinyu was now facing a peak level 2 creature. The level 3 Demon Shadow Bull has locked onto him. The Demon Shadow Bull is notorious for its terrible luck, almost about to ignite. Seeing Kinyu, it immediately charged forward with red eyes. This man not only used beautiful words during his declaration at the competition, but also destroyed a plane, eliminating a large number of competitors. He came in with a powerful move, and the male lead Kinyu, who had just landed, had no idea at this moment. The shadow cows have already set their sights on me. The 2 shadow vehicles immediately charged at me. The next second, there was a huge bang, but Kinyu was completely fine. Both shadow cows were destroyed. The protagonist was confused. Is this competition delivering things to my door? Is it really this thoughtful? The teachers and principals from various colleges in the audience were also stunned at this moment. Is Kinyu really this strong? Principal Lai could only explain, he's a mutant. Don't your sheep tribe also have barbarians? As the principals turned their heads, they saw Kinyu chewing something with great appetite. They were all stunned. At this great, they haven't learned how to process monster meat yet, have they? Is this brat going to eat himself to death? But when the camera zooms out, Kinyu isn't eating meat at all. He's clearly gnawing on an energy ball that exchanges for points. This left the principals stunned. How did he end up eating an energy ball? That's the key item for exchanging points. Has this kid even remembered the rules of the competition? Guess what happened next? Kinyu didn't pay attention to the competition rules at all. Instead of listening to that, it's better to do something to gain some energy. After finishing the energy ball, Kinyu wiped his mouth and stood up. Since he was here, he had to get some energy. So, Kinyu started his extremely irritating and reckless actions. Stealing bear cubs, pulling out the cheetah's fangs, frying a big bird's egg. Wait. These actions on the field made the spectators in the stands grit their teeth. How did this kid manage to live this long? Everyone here is responsible. This is just so damn ridiculous. Meanwhile, on the field, Kinyu looked like he was enjoying it, with a big snake coiled around his waist, trying to strangle him. What he was running was called. Just when he thought of finding the next unlucky soul, he saw a pair of dog ears propped up in the grass. Oh ho, there's a little puppy here. So he directly pounced toward the dog ears. When he grabbed the ears and pulled upward with force, he pulled out a little loli with dog ears from the grass. This scared Kinyu quite a bit. How did such a big creature get pulled out? The next second, 3 dog-eared girls suddenly leaped out from a nearby bush. One of them shouted, "Woomy, what's wrong? Did a prey fall into a trap?" But when they looked over, they saw a man with a beastly expression lying on top of their Woomy. The 3 of them immediately turned red with rage, their eyes filled with murderous intent. Kinyu was sweating profusely and said, "If I say it was a misunderstanding, would you believe me?" The 3 young girls didn't give him a chance to explain. They charged at him with weapons, full of killing intent. After a thorough beating, the youngest 5th sister finally managed to explain what had happened. The 3 girls realized they had misunderstood. Kinyu angrily shouted, "Now you say it's a misunderstanding? You beat me up so badly just now? If it weren't for my crocodile and python brothers taking the hits for me, I'd be dead." I'm not human, it's true. But you guys are really dogs? A woman said, then what do you want? Kunyu let out an evil laugh. What do I want? He then reached for his waist. Several girls screamed in fright. Classmate, this is a live stream. Kunyu even more excited after hearing this. Live stream is good. Live stream is more exciting. This scene frightened several girls, causing them to repeatedly retreat. Is Kunyu gonna live stream himself acting like a hooligan? But the next moment, Kunyu up the two brothers who had shielded him from the knife, saying, who here knows how to cook? The four sisters exchanged glances. The problem shouldn't be too big, right? Immediately Kunyu's eyes were open wide. The fifth sister, Keek, was a master with the knife, chopping vegetables at lightning speed. The fourth sister, Lanlin, was meticulous with her ingredients, handling everything with ease. The third sister, Kuki, was skilled at starting the fire, steady as an old hand. The second sister, Yuil, wielded the big ladle like a master, cooking with grace. To be honest, with the four sisters working together like this, the dishes they make later shine with golden light, but Kinyu is not surprised. But when these people finish and pack up, Kinyu looks at the thick green liquid still bubbling in the large pot, with a whole alligator head floating on top. He falls into deep silence. Is this the right process but the wrong result? This alligator now has a stronger aura than when it was killed. Are you four sisters brewing poison or something? The four sis curiously gathered around. Why aren't you eating? Kinyu's face darkened as he replied, classmates, this isn't eating, this is freaking suicide. Then he turned and offered the pot of green, mushy crocodile head to the four sisters. The second sister pushed it away immediately. We can't do that. You're the guest, guests eat first. Kunyu smiled and said, why are you being so polite with me? There are so many of you, and you all so small. What if you're starving? Don't be polite. Everyone drink up. The four sisters, jokingly, still had a little bit of confidence in their cooking skills. They hurriedly declined. Oh no, you should drink it. For a moment, Kunyu and the four sisters were pushing and shoving the pot of soup, and had reached a deadlock. None of them was willing to drink it. At that moment a delicate shout suddenly came from not far away. Where did this stinky hooligan come from? Let go my sister. Then a blood-red dagger flew out, slashing towards Kinyu's arm. Kinyu quickly dodged. He accidentally spilled the soup onto the ground. It made a sizzling sound. Kunyu was too distracted to care about the soup now. He turned around and saw a girl's figure running out of the woods. She passed by the knife and lightly tapped the back of the blade with her heel. The entire blade immediately spun and flew up. The girl reached out and grabbed it mid-air. He grabbed the handle of the knife. Then he leaped into the air. He raised the knife and slashed down at Kinyu. And Kinyu also recognized that this was the girl who had almost grabbed the steering wheel on the bus after being scared by him. Friends who often act cheap know? Punching kindergartners and kicking old age homes are just basic moves. But this man dared to use a little girl to block a knife. One man fights 5 women, making them scream in agony. The male lead, Kunyu, watched as the knife-wielding girl lunged toward him. Without a second thought, he grabbed the youngest of the Kwon family, fifth sister, and pulled her over. He directly used her as a shield in front of him, turning her into a human shield. The knife-wielding girl was startled. She had no choice but to forcefully change the direction of her knife mid-air. Otherwise, her own sister would have been split in half. As soon as she landed, she saw Kinyu and was overjoyed. Angrily, she shouted, "You demon!" At this moment, fifth sister also reacted. She was about to throw a little punch at Kunyu's face. Kunyu flicked his hand and threw fifth sister toward the others. The 4 older sisters quickly scrambled to catch her. Kunyu then smirked and said, "You all with your long ears. It's quite soft. You guys aren't Dakshuns, are you?" The older sister, furious, grabbed the knife again. "You're the Dakshund. You devil missing a corner and lacking morals. It was bad enough that you tricked me before. How dare you bully my sister?" After saying that, she twisted the handle. The handle immediately popped open. It turned into a broadsword. The eldest sister's qui surged and she shouted, "I'll chop off your remaining horns today." Kunyu could only dodge the incoming blade while shouting, "Are you even listening to reason? They were the ones who tried to poison me?" The eldest sister didn't want to hear Kinyu's explanation. She shouted, "Form the array." The other 4 sisters rushed up as well. Kinyu almost swore on the spot. Is this some kind of righteous gang assault? Shouldn't I be the main character in this comic? Why do you keep beating up the main character? In the end, he was so angry that he couldn't take it anymore, and thought to himself, so it's mutual harm, huh? Then he hugged the big tree behind him with all 6 arms, pull it out by the roots. Holding it in his hands, he swung it like a huge club. He sent the oncoming Inu sisters flying. The eldest sister knew that with Kinyu's strength, her younger sisters definitely couldn't handle him. She had to step in herself, so she swung her long sword rapidly. The tree was instantly cut down by half. Kinyu was stunned. Is this an orc pencil sharpener from another world? No, I have to make her stop. He exerted force with his feet. He rushed at the older sister, holding the remaining half of the tree stump. The older sister raised her knife and stabbed, but when she tried to pull it out, She discovered that her knife was actually stuck in the tree stump. Kunyu was overjoyed. Little brat, dare to test your strength against me? Forget about willow branches. I'll even pull out telephone poles for you. Then he threw the stake and his elder sister flying through the air. This time his elder sister was truly enraged. She yelled out mid-air, "External martial art earth flow." Kunyu almost cried. Well, this girl is actually a level 3 martial artist, and she knows skills. Instantly countless hard earth spikes of varying sizes rained down on Kunyu like meteors. But it's unlikely he'd be afraid, so Kunyu crossed his arm, and with a loud shout, charged towards the older sister, right through the skill. The older sister hadn't even reacted yet. She was directly knocked into Kinyu's arms, and was sent flying again. This time the eldest sister was also seriously injured. On the sidelines, Long Li in the audience saw this scene. She couldn't help but exclaim, that eldest sister is actually a level 3 martial artist. Yuna nodded and said with admiration in her eyes, someone who reached level 3 at such a young age, that is extremely rare. This girl is truly destined for greatness, Yuli said with some concern. The jade spike she launched isn't nailed to the tree trunk. It directly pierces through. Its power is no less than a bullet. Can Kinyu withstand it? On the field, Kunyu is holding his ground, and the wound is still healing. The eldest daughter of the Quan family is stunned. The physical martial arts technique. Is this demon a result of some kind of genetic mutation? They say a region's land nurtures its demons, but I've never heard that our land nurtures demons like this. And on the opposite side, Kunyu knows that he won't be able to withstand many more of these attacks. I can't let her have another chance to strike. The next moment, Kunyu, like a phantom, dashed towards the eldest Miss Quan at incredible speed. The eldest Miss Quan instantly understood Kunyu's intentions. Naturally, she wouldn't let him get close, so she raised both hands, unleashing another martial arts technique. She slammed her raised hands downwards forcefully, immediately creating a wave of earth that surged upwards. The imposing wave crashed towards Kinyu. Kinyu's movement is also extremely fast. A high jump followed by a front flip, a 720-degree aerial spin, and a waist flip. He lands steadily and charges forward again. After this series of moves, the audience wanted to give him a perfect score. The woman saw that Kunyu was still coming at full speed. She waved her hands. Countless earth spikes shot out, heading straight for Kinyu. This time Kinyu didn't choose to resist. He kicked an innocent tree by the roadside. The broken tree top shot up into the sky, sweeping the incoming earth spikes in all directions, and stirring up a huge amount of dust and smoke. Seeing this scene, the dog clan's eldest sister understood immediately that they were trying to use the dust to obscure vision and then engage in close combat. At this thought, she couldn't help but smile. After all, she was from the dog clan. Compared to the eyes, locking on a location by smell is my specialty. So I confidently swung a knife in the direction of the strongest scent, but instead I ended up slicing into a pot of green soup with floating crocodile heads. I thought this is bad, but the next moment, a hand reached out from the smoke and dust and firmly grabbed my neck. Friends who often make mistakes know this feeling well. Taking a little girl hostage, lifting a 100-pound tree as a weapon is just standard procedure. And this man actually kidnapped a teacher and forcefully seized supplies. What's even crazier is that he tricked many competitors into giving up points. At this moment on the competition field, the audience was split into two groups. One side was shouting, "Holy shit, he used brute force to beat a level 3 warrior. This is fucking cheating." The other side is shouting, "What the hell, can he just control the earth like that? This is seriously a fool." Seeing Kinyu's victory, the happiest one has to be Yuli. Yuna, on the other hand, has something on her mind. The strength Kinyu is showing now is completely crushing Wooly. If he had tried to steal Yuli before, he definitely would have succeeded. But he didn't do it. Could it be that he's really the kind of demon with a conscience? As Wu Lai said, is he a demon with a conscience? At this moment, Kunyu sat there in the arena, looking dispirited. On the other side, the 5 Inagami sisters huddled together, none of them daring to speak. In the end, Kunyu simply picked the pot of green stew with alligator head and said, Look, this is the evidence that your sister tried to poison me." Elder sister Quan Saksha awkwardly tried to explain. With the demon's digestive abilities, there definitely won't be a problem. Besides, maybe it just looks scary. It might actually taste good. Quan Xiaoxiao's words made Kinyu's eyes widen in shock. He grabbed the pot and was about to pour it into Quan Xiaoxiao's mouth. "I heard that the noble families can eat anything. Here, let me have you try this flavorful mixed dish." Looking at the crocodile coming over with its mouth wide open, Quan Xiaoxiao fought back with all her might. She knows what kind of cooking skills her younger sister has. Eating this would be a life or death situation. That was certain death. So she quickly tried to divert Kinyu's attention. "I know where we can find food." Before Quan Xiaoxiao could finish her sentence, the pot of green soup in Kinyu's hand was flipped over and poured straight into Quan Xiaoxiao's mouth. Quan Xiaoxiao immediately foamed at the mouth and passed out. If it hadn't been for her younger sister's quick rescue, I'm afraid I'd be the first contestant ever eliminated by cooking. The night passed without incident. The competition reached its third day. At this time, next to a large transport plane, several men and women in uniform were barbecuing. Next to them was a large pile of supplies, either food or water. One of them just raised a skewer. When a phantom flashed past in a whoosh, the skewers in their hands disappeared without a trace. When they looked over, they found a little girl squatting on a branch, eating a skewer. It was none other than the young girl from the Inuzuka family in Nuzuka Koko. Just as they were about to persuade her to come down, to explain that they were not contestants, the staff distributing food. Before they could say anything, they all got a knife slash across their necks. They all passed out immediately. The ones who struck were the strongest, Kwansai Axiao and Kin Yu. Kin Yu and the others were now so hungry, their eyes were gleaming. They immediately pulled out beef, chicken, fish, lamb, pig's head, pork belly, chicken wings. They sprinkled cumin and chili powder and started grilling everything. While grilling, Kun Yu said, Kwansai Axiao, you can actually do it. You really guessed it right. There really is food here. Give me some chicken wings and garlic. At this moment, fourth sister arrived in front of the fallen staff member and carefully observed. Looking at the nameplate on the ground, supply distribution staff. Galao San. She shouted, eldest sister, this is... We just took the staff's things. Kun Yu and Daxiaksho were suddenly startled. This is a disaster. Taxiaksho moved quick. In an instant, she took out a lot of supplies and instructed, hurry up and take the food while no one is looking. Third sister, fourth sister, come help. If more people show up, we might get surrounded. Third sister looked at the figure gradually appearing in the distance. She said, sis, we might be too late. Just then, Kun Yu came up with a plan in his mind. He smirked and said, don't rush to leave. Maybe we can gain a lot from this. Meanwhile, in the distance, a small group of 4 is rushing towards here. One of them asked, leader, is the supply point up ahead? Didn't they say they wouldn't distribute food after the first day? Will it still be useful if we go now? Without even lifting his head, the leader replied, something unexpected happened. Nearly 90% of the people parachuted out midway. Could they possibly let 90% of the people fight on empty stomachs? This competition mainly tests our reconnaissance ability and combat effectiveness, not starvation and survival in the wild. Mass non-combat attrition will not be permitted. Soon several people arrived at the supply distribution point. The captain shouted, hello. We're here to get food. A staff member stood in front of the supplies. He greeted warmly. Hey. Welcome, welcome, you've worked hard, classmate. The leader of the 4-person team chuckled. You staff members are the ones working hard. Please give me 4 portions of supplies, thank you. The staff member Kin Yu was impersonating immediately nodded. No problem, no problem. Then he gave a sly smile and said, but classmate, what kind of supplies would you like, and at what level? The 4-person team was stunned. Supplies come in different levels. Kun Yu waved his hand and showed the 4 levels of supplies behind him, saying, our competition is very humane. How could it be harsh? Without thinking, the 4 members immediately chose the most abundant and luxurious D set. Kun Yu rubbed his hands and said, 4 level 3 energy balls. Thank you for your patronage. The squad leader looked incredulous. Why do you still need energy balls? Kun Yu also looked incredulous. How could you not need energy balls? There's no such thing as a free lunch in this world. The squad leader still wanted to negotiate, saying, but didn't you just say it's user-friendly? Aren't we still the Empire's budding flowers? Kun Yu quickly grabbed the package and said, our package is completely free. No charge, it's very user-friendly. The squad leader explained, but the 4 energy balls are all we've collected these past few days. The Inu sisters hiding behind the supplies are also feeling conflicted. On the one hand, I admire Kin Yu for devising such a cunning plan. On the other hand, I think Kin Yu's plan is a bit too underhanded. Kin Yu looked at the squad leader in front of him, knowing he was just one step away from falling for it. How could I let such a good opportunity to take advantage of him slip away? So he pretended to be talking to himself, muttering softly. What a genius, such a pity. The squad leader heard most of it. I suddenly felt there must be something fishy going on. I quickly pressed him. What do you mean by that? What test? What a pity. Kun Yu's expression turned serious. I didn't say anything. Nothing like that. The squad leader relentlessly pressed on. You clearly said it just now. Brother, just tell us what kind of test it is. I'm willing to pay for it. Kun Yu said with feigned annoyance. Fine, fine. Who can blame me for being so soft-hearted? I only heard about it, you know? Don't you dare say it was me, okay? Xiaolai and the other 3 nodded in agreement. Kin Yu said with a serious expression, do you know why the meal plans are divided into levels? Those 4 definitely don't know? Because originally, there was no such thing as a tiered system. It was completely made up by Kun Yu. Seeing the confusion on the faces of the 4 people, Kun Yu quietly said, that's because this is a hidden bonus feature. You can spend energy points to purchase a higher tier plan. It will be settled at the end of the competition. There will be double points as a reward. The 5 sisters of the Quan family each took out a melon and started eating. Now let's see how Kin Yu will bluff. Friends who often act cheap, no teacher buy-in, stealing supplies and tricking others into dangerous situations. These are all just routine operations. And this man not only calls the 18-year-old strong girl auntie, but also has extensive knowledge about things that leave people amazed. At this time, the group of 4 who came to collect supplies had been completely fooled by the male lead Kinyu's nonsense, and Kinyu still acted as if he was asking them to keep it a secret from others. The squad leader was stunned. Other people already. What other people? Kinyu raised his hand and pointed outwards. When the squad leader looked to the side, he saw several more squads approaching in the distance. Saoi immediately stopped hesitating. He picked up several meal packages and stuffed several energy balls into Kinyu's hands, afraid he would regret it. This series of actions completely dumbfounded the 5 Quan sisters. Such a slick operation is not something a normal person could come up with. He's worthy of being a devil. Meanwhile, in the outside world, the 3 principals of Kinyu's school were in a tough spot. The other principals from different schools surrounded them with unfriendly expressions. They all accused Kinyu of this shameless behavior as cheating. His qualification for the competition must be revoked. Principal Lai smiled slightly. This isn't cheating in a martial artist's world. This is called resource exchange. Principal Lu also spoke calmly. If your students use this method, do you still think it's cheating? In the end, Principal Yang's temper finally couldn't be held back. He shouted, "What are you all arguing about? If there was a violation, the organizers would have stepped in long ago. If nothing's happened by now, it means there's no problem. If you have any complaints, take it up with the organizers." At this moment in the audience seats, whether it's the students, teachers, or the principal, they all have the same thought: who can stop this demon? Because on the screen, people are already lined up to exchange energy balls for packages with Kinyu. Kinyu takes the money with one hand and delivers with the other. His hands are cramping from holding all the energy balls. Simply a big harvest. But just at that moment, a shout rang out. You've all been deceived. As soon as these words were spoken, those who had finished changing their plans and hadn't left, as well as those still in line, were all stunned. They turned towards the sound and saw a staff member, stripped of clothes, crawling out of a box. He shouted, "They were trying to steal the free supplies, and then you all suddenly showed up. They were the ones pretending to be us." These words undoubtedly ignited the anger of everyone present. Even Kinyu was angry. How could those 5 idiots from the Inuzuka family even fail to guard the hostages properly? After they exchanged supplies, they hadn't gone far and immediately came back to question Kinyu and the others. But they found that the people were already gone. Upon looking closely, they had already run a long distance away. Immediately they all chased after it. Kinyu was overjoyed. What is it? This is taking a risk, turning a bike into a motorcycle. The Inugami sisters who were following Kinyu were also very happy. They asked while running, "Classmate, should we split it 30/70ths or 40/60ths? Kinyu played dumb. What do you mean by 30/70ths or 40/60ths? When did I say anything about splitting?" Second sister smiled slightly. "Let's both compromise. A 50/50 split is fine too." Kinyu chuckled. "What? You're aiming your sights at me? A chicken feather stuck on a telegraph pole, what nerve?" But just then, a long spear, whistling through the air, attacked the group. Eldest sister Quan Xiaoxiao leaped forward. The foot kicked the gun's body. The long spear was kicked away. Before the long spear hit the ground, it was caught steadily by a hand. 3 figures walked out from the woods. One was a charming snake tribe girl, one was cloaked of an unknown race, and one was extremely strong, likely from the rhinoceros tribe. What a wonderful combination. The serpent girl looked at Kinyu and licked her lips. "Little baby, you're responding quite well. I really don't want to eliminate you." She said this out loud, but Kinyu's system kept chiming, sensing hostility. Kinyu smiled slightly, feeling that the newcomer was up to no good. At this moment, Quan Xiaoxiao came to Kinyu's side and whispered, "The serpent people excel at grappling. They're tough in close combat. The rhino people are incredibly strong. They're naturally gifted at siege warfare." But Kinyu could sense that the one in the cloak, whose face was hidden, was the most dangerous of them all, no matter what race she belongs to. The 3 on the opposite side began to strategize. They finally decided that the cloaked woman and the rhino woman would face the 5 Quan sisters. "The snake woman is coming to fight Kinyu. Wait until I've decided." Then swaying her waist, the snake woman walked towards Kinyu. She came over. Quan Xiaoxiao glanced at the 3 people opposite. She whispered to her sisters, "Protect yourselves when the fight starts. This isn't something you can get involved in." The snake woman approached Kinyu and teased, "Little brother, I really like big muscular guys like you. How about we have some fun together?" Kinyu watched the snake woman as she flirted and posed. Suddenly he became shy. "You're so annoying. What are you talking about? I'm still young. Stuff like bondage, teacher-student roleplay, or forced love? I don't understand any of that tilt." These words, when spoken, almost made everyone present spit blood. The 5 people from the team almost cursed out loud. "What are you doing, Ed? Why are you going for up damage? And you're not even using your skills to harm the enemy, but to help your ally?" The serpent woman was first stunned, then covered her face and laughed. "Little brother, you're playing quite flashy. But as for me, sister, I just want to see you lose. While speaking, the spear in his hand struck toward Kinyu's face like a lightning bolt. At this moment, Quan Xiaoxiao wanted to warn him, but it was already too late. Kunyu, however, calmly reached out and grabbed the incoming spear. He smiled and said, I'm not as cruel as you. You keep making people lose. Let's set a small goal first. How about we play until you cry? Then Kinyu reached out and pulled the gun barrel. He pulled the she-woman towards him. Immediately he embraced her slender waist and whispered, What do you think, auntie? The moment he called her auntie, the she-woman almost burst into tears. After all, she was not yet 20. The impact of calling her auntie was simply too great. Instantly the enraged she-woman turned. With another swing of its thick tail, sent Kinyu flying. Then ignoring the Quan sisters, it pounced on the fallen Kinyu. Quan Xiaoxiao was just about to help when she felt a gust of wind behind her. It was a rhinoceros warrior charging towards her. By the time Quan Xiaoxiao noticed, those fists were already within striking distance. Suddenly a earth-shattering roar echoed throughout the arena. At this moment, Kunyu was struggling to climb out from the broken tree he'd been smashed into. I didn't expect the serpent woman's tail to be so powerful. Hearing that roar over there, I wonder how the 5 dogs are doing. Before Kinyu could think further, the snake woman has already charged forward, radiating killing intent. If you have the time to worry about others, you might as well think about your last words. Teasing beauties, betraying companions, picking fights for money. Those who often act cheap know. These are just routine operations. But the man in front of me, not only can his younger brother withstand a spear, he almost completely ruined them. Kunyu, the reserved male lead, watched the snake woman charging towards him, feeling not surprised but rather delighted. He hadn't had a real fight yet. It was a good chance to test the effectiveness of the system's enhancement, so he easily dodged a sweeping spear and swiftly raised his right fist, smashing it towards the snake woman. The next second, the serpent woman stepped back unharmed, retreating several meters. In contrast, Kunyu's arm was left with a wound. Kunyu furrowed his brows. This serpent woman is something. She doesn't seem like the typical busty airhead after all. Didn't expect her to have this trick up her sleeve. That punch clearly felt like it landed. But the serpent clan's naturally flexible body absorbed most of the force, and those fine scales. He changed his fighting stance. This inch allowed him to collide with her spear. The snake woman also stood up. She cast a seductive glance and smiled. Not bad. It's a pity though, we snake people are naturally counter to all brute strength. Having said that, she slightly bowed her body, half crouching, and said, This time I want your leg. Then she rapidly charged towards Kinyu. You knew that his lack of combat experience had cost him, so without hesitation he turned and ran. The snake woman laughed when she saw this. Do you really think you can escape? But little did she know, Kinyu ran straight to a large tree, then grinned and said, Who said I'm running away, old lady? I'm just warming up. I'll just uproot the tree again. Then I'll throw it forcefully at the snake woman in front of me. The snake woman didn't panic at all when she saw this. In fact, she almost wanted to laugh. Don't you know how to dodge? She immediately flattened herself almost completely to the ground, and then slithered through the gap between the tree and the ground. Then with a change in form, it appeared right in front of Kinyu. It thrust straight toward the middle of Kunyu's crotch. Kunyu was instantly terrified, his face full of shock. This is the rhythm of being castrated. But in the next moment, the spear snapped in half. The snake woman was stunned upon seeing this. How is this possible? But before she could think it through, Kinyu's large hand swooped down. He directly grabbed her slender neck. Kinyu smirked with a dark face. Finally caught you. I threw the tree to lure you into attacking from below, but I never expected you to be so ruthless. You went straight for Xiao Vi and Xiao Yu? The snake woman struggled and asked, So this was all part of your plan. But how could you have blocked my attack there? That's where Yimen's most vulnerable point lies. Kunyu let out an evil smile. Perhaps you should know what it means to be unyielding. Then he burst into laughter. After he finished laughing, he looked at the snake woman and said with an evil smile, So next, let's discuss how we should deal with you. On the other side, the 5th daughter of the Inu family has already started fighting with the other 2. The eldest Inu Xiaoxiao has restrained the Xizu woman. The other 4 are surrounding the cloaked woman. But after fighting for a long time, the 4th daughter hasn't even touched the cloaked woman. Instead, they're all out of breath. Looking ahead, the cloaked woman is already bored, yawning. The 4 sisters had no clue whatsoever. They didn't even know what her race was. The speed was too fast. But just then, a shadow was thrown toward the woman in the cloak. Her figure flashed as she tried to dodge. But as it got closer, she realized that it was the snake woman being thrown at her. At this moment, the serpent woman had her face covered, lost in her own world. She couldn't hear anything others said. She kept muttering to herself, I can't go on, no please, no more. Her expression was one of complete despair. The cloaked woman widened her eyes in fury at the sight. Did that minor do this? The 4 sisters of the Inu family also felt disgusted. What did that demon do to her? This snake woman is already out of her mind. At this moment, Kunyu's voice came through. Don't say nonsense. Be careful or I'll report you to Xiaoyu. I only asked her to help me try something. He smiled as he said this. I didn't expect she would open the door to a new world. Sai, I'm confused too. The cloaked woman gently placed the snake woman down and spoke. It seems my initial judgment of you was wrong. You are worthy to be my opponent. Then the female warrior flicked her cloak aside, revealing a full and well-proportioned figure. She reached for the twin blades on her back. State your name, she said. Kunyu chuckled. I'll not change my name or title. Your father Kunyu is here. As soon as Kunyu finished speaking, the woman in the cloak arrived before him like a whirlwind. She swung both daggers at Kinyu's neck and said, My name is Tanglan. Kinyu looked at the incoming daggers without the slightest fear. The daggers stopped suddenly just before reaching him. It was Kinyu who had caught Tang Lion's hands. Kinyu shamelessly sized up Tang Lion. You're an assassin, right? Who gave you the courage to confront someone head-on as an assassin? Are you out of your mind? Tang Lion almost laughed in anger. Man, you've successfully caught my attention. After saying that, it was as if Tang Lion entered a certain state. Her entire aura shifted. The cloak behind her flared up high. The fourth daughter of the Quan family suddenly remembered something. She nervously shouted to Kinyu. Watch out. She's from the green-backed Mantis tribe. This tribe has been cultivated as killing machines since childhood. They are top-tier assassins. By the time Kinyu heard this, he had already been cut on his right leg, and this is not over yet. Tang Lion's speed has already reached a terrifying level. Kinyu could not lock onto her with his sight. In an instant, his waist was struck again. Just as Kinyu was slightly distracted, Tang Lion's knife had silently pressed against Kinyu's neck. It was then that Kinyu realized this person was on a completely different level compared to that snake woman. Driving beautiful women to break down, making teammates cry. Frequent offenders know that these are all basic operations. But this man before us not only endured attacks and insults from his opponent, but also destroyed his opponent's teammates' clothes. On the field, the male protagonist Kunyu is now truly in a difficult position. The greenback praying mantis tribe is one of the top killing races in the entire orc world. Tang Lion is even considered one of the top experts of the younger generation. Her speed is far faster than Kinyu's. Right now, Kinyu is completely relying on taking hits and hard blocking. He can't dodge at all, let alone counterattack. It's even hard for him to see any shadows. At this moment, Kunyu's wolf-like appearance is making both those in the arena and those close to him worry greatly. Of course, some people are incredibly happy. The school principals and teachers who were all tricked by Kinyu and left are now really having a blast. They were totally excited. Yuli, watching this scene, was also a bit worried. Yuna patted her head and said, Things aren't that bad yet. Just look at Kinyu's expression. Yuli turned to look at Kinyu on the big screen. Although he was at a disadvantage, he still wore a faint smile on his face. You knew that in terms of speed, he was definitely no match for Tang Lion. If it dragged on, he would undoubtedly die. There was only one way left. With this thought, Kunyu took a deep breath and shouted, Little sister, you're not good enough either. You're no fun even when you're cutting people. Did you become a warrior by taking shortcuts? This completely confused the audience. At this point, Yuri's provoking Tang Lion. Isn't he that like looking for death by lighting a lantern in a bathroom? Meanwhile, Kinyu on the field shows no signs of stopping. He continues to shout, Stop scraping, stop scraping. Master, how about we go somewhere else to scrape? If all else fails, I'll give you 2 hammers and you can help me loosen my muscles. But sis, you can leave your name. I'll give you a 5-star review. Next time I need cupping, I'll choose you. After saying all that, who could resist? Even Clay figurine has 3 points of spirit, let alone Tang Lion. Immediately the frequency of attacks increased sharply. Kunyu completely ignored the wounds on his body. Keep up the verbal sparring. What killing machine? It's all a bluff. It's more like a scraping machine. You know what? It feels really good. This scene left the entire audience, teachers, and principals completely speechless. Yuri even tugged on Yuna's sleeve and said, Mom, should we order Kinyu a coffin now? He has a large build. The coffin will probably need to be custom made. Yuna ignored Yuli and was also deep in thought. What exactly is Kunyu's foolish and bubbling behavior about right now? What on earth is going on? At this moment, Kunyu was overjoyed. He watched as the system rapidly displayed various energy gains from increasing anger. Everything was going according to plan. Kunyu understood that Tang Lion was highly experienced. If I let her keep grinding away, I'll almost certainly die. But assassins have a common flaw. Their endurance is poor. As long as I keep provoking her, keeping her in a high-speed attack mode, she'll drain her stamina prematurely. At that moment, Kunyu felt something behind him. This strike was noticeably slower than the initial ones. Kunyu knew the chance had come. Then Tang Lion saw Kunyu extend a finger and tap in mid-air. She couldn't see Kunyu's system interface. What she didn't know was that Kunyu had used all his accumulated energy points to enhance his physical attributes. Instantly, Kunyu felt his whole body lighten. So he clenched his fist and struck towards the predicted location. Tang Lion happened to appear at this spot at that moment. If it were at the beginning, Tang Lion could have easily dodged it with a slight movement. But now her strength is diminished, and her speed is noticeably slower. Therefore, Tang Lion could only choose to block with her sword as a last resort. The next second, the entire longsword was smashed to pieces by Kunyu's single punch. Tang Lion's face was still filled with shock. The punch came without slowing down. It directly smashed into Tang Lion's face. Immediately, Tang Lion was sent flying with blood streaming from her nose. She was sent flying out, but it wasn't over. Kunyu leaped high into the air. In mid-air, he caught up with the flying Tang Lion. He grabbed her ankle with one hand. Then he forcefully slammed down. As Tang Lion crashed heavily to the ground, she knew she had already lost. Her head tilted as she was about to faint, but in the next second, she was jolted awake by the pressure coming from above. She looked up and saw Kunyu in mid-air. His smashing down toward Tang Lion's head. It came down with a violent force. This strike from the people, if it lands, Tang Lion will be either dead or severely injured. But at this moment, thick tree trunk as thick as a water bucket swept across. It sent Kunyu was in mid-air flying. Kunyu slid and tumbled to the ground. After he stopped and looked, it was the rhino woman, brandishing a tree trunk and shouting, "Bully my sisters, let me see how many lives you have." Then she threw the tree trunk and charged straight at Kunyu. Tang Lion thought it was bad and quickly called out to warn her, but the rhino woman wouldn't listen. When she got close, she threw a punch right at Kinyu's face. But Kinyu stood still, not moving at all. He only has minor abrasions on his face. The rhino woman was stunned. She immediately shouted, "Rhino warrior never bows." She began to gather all her strength. Then her fists rained down on Kinyu's head like a storm. But in the end, Kunyu didn't have any significant injuries on his face. Finally, annoyed by the constant blows, Kunyu dodged a few times and said, "Big girl, you should listen to your companion's advice. This time you've hit a steel plate." With those words, Kunyu revealed a malicious smile. He grabbed Rhino Woman's fist with his electric hand. Then he squeezed hard, sending a burst of energy out. It surged toward Rhino Woman's body. Her clothes and armor immediately couldn't withstand it. It turned into an explosive wardrobe malfunction. This time, revealing the shy girlish heart of the Rhino Woman with a heart of steel. It's all been exposed. He opens his mouth to scold the pretty girl, throwing punches and tearing her clothes. Those who often act like jerks will definitely know these are just standard operation. But this man before us not only hides in the grass to ambush, but also tricks everyone into a siege. In the end, he picked up the head himself. Just as the male lead, Kunyu, was about to strike a palm and rip the clothes off the rhinoceros tribe's big girl, the girl's shy expression was knocked out of her. Kunyu was stunned by the beautiful scene in front of him. He didn't expect that this rhinoceros tribe girl had such a fantastic figure. But before Kunyu could say anything, a flying arrow shot straight toward him. Kunyu heard the fierce wind rushing toward his ear. She ducked down to avoid the flying arrow. When she turned around again, Tang Lion had already helped the rhinoceros tribe girl and was fleeing, covering her face. But even while running away, Tang Lion did forget to throw a few words to the wolf. "Big guy, I'll remember you. I'll deal with you next time we meet." Kunyu watched as the three girls fled in a panic. "I couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. What a pity. These ladies have such different styles, and they were all eye-catching." The five sisters from the Quan family also gathered around Kunyu. They cheered, "Demon, you were really something like a little cow flying a plane." Unbelievable. Only then did Kunyu have time to examine the wounds on his body. They had already nearly healed. At this moment, Kunyu began to doubt whether he was really a demon. The response speed is nothing compared to that of the Demon Lord clan. Once everyone is mostly recovered, Kunyu stood up and chuckled. "Let's head for the center area. It's time to start fighting for the rankings." So the group of 6 began to rush toward the center area at full speed. The center was already in a chaotic all-out battle. Countless second-tier monsters are in a fierce battle with a group of trainees. However, Kunyu and the Inuzuka sisters didn't rush in. Instead, they hid in the nearby bushes. The eldest sister, Inuzuka Xiaoxiao, expressed her doubts to Z. Kunyu sneered, "What's the rush? Are you in a hurry to rush in and throw your life away? Or are you in a hurry to deliver takeout to the monsters? There are so many people. They were already at their doorstep. The evil insect leader probably can't sit still anymore." As expected, just as Kunyu finished speaking, a ripple of energy came from the largest cave in the middle. A giant insect with the lower body of a worm and the upper body of a woman crawled out of the cave. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. This is actually a level 5 evil insect queen. Which normal person would throw something like this into a student competition? Are they trying to kill all the students? On the other hand, Kunyu grinned evilly when he saw this scene. This is exactly what he was waiting for, seeing Kunyu's scheming smile. Sun Xiaoxia panicked. "You don't plan to hit her, do you? Get a grip on yourself. I know you're crazy, but can you please not go crazy just yet?" Kunyu, a bit confused, said, "Who says there aren't any sharp weapons? Pa, who says you have to do the fighting yourself?" Then he suddenly stood up and shouted loudly, The Queen of Evil Bugs is here. Everyone get ready to fight. This is the biggest energy point of the entire scene. If we miss this chance, it's gone. Once these words were spoken, everyone who was originally thinking of retreating stopped in their tracks. Normally no one would believe such nonsense, but now it's the final round. With everyone's scores nearly the same, whoever can kill the Queen of the Bugs will basically secure the victory. So everyone acted like they'd been injected with adrenaline. They immediately turned and started attacking the evil insect queen. They completely stunned the evil insect queen. Some of them hesitated unsure. When everyone saw the evil insect queen standing still, they thought she had been intimidated by them. They were overjoyed and immediately unleashed all their firepower. They used everything: bloodthirst, tranquility, and calm composure. They launched a full-scale assault. At this moment, the Queen of Vermin finally reacted. These little pests actually dared to attack her. Furious, her tail turned into a long whip. She immediately lashed out, sending most of the first wave flying. This didn't intimidate anyone, though. Instead, it drove them completely mad. Now was the time to deal more damage, so they pushed even harder with their attacks. Kunyu frowned as he looked at this scene. This doesn't seem right. Even if this monster is a blood cow, it should still be worn down and killed. But after fighting for so long, why is there no sign of weakness? Looking at the calm and composed back of the Queen of Evil Bugs, can you realize he must have missed some weakness? Suddenly, the evil insect queen's long hair floated, revealing a glowing purple crystal on her back. It seems that's it. At this time, Kunyu also emerged from the grass. A brilliant plan came to him. He called Quan Xiaxia over and gave her a few instructions. Quan Xiaxia's face changed. You crazy? What you're doing is too dangerous. Kunyu stretched and smiled. Fortune lies in danger. That's always been the case. After saying that, he stood up and walked toward the evil insect queen. He reached out and grabbed a spear from someone nearby. Stepping on a mortal's head, he leapt high into the air. He landed behind the evil insect queen. His spear was raised high. Then he threw it forcefully at the evil insect queen. The evil insect queen sensed an attack from behind. She quickly tried to dodge to the side, but she was still pierced through one arm by the shot. Quan Xiaxia followed closely behind. Activating her external martial arts technique, countless spears burst forth, piercing the evil insect queen from behind. At this moment, the evil insect queen was nailed to the spot, unable to move, revealing the purple crystal at the juncture of her waist and hip. Kunyu knew that success or failure hinged on this one blow. He gathered all his strength and accelerated with all his might, directly smashing towards the crystal. This strike was earth-shattering, almost completely blasting off the evil insect queen's upper body. Xiaxia watched Kunyu, who was still striking a pose. After a long time, he finally managed to utter two words. Amazing. But just then, Quan Xiaxia suddenly felt a chill. Turning around, she saw the evil insect queen open its huge mouth and charge directly at Kunyu, who was almost exhausted. She quickly shouted, Kunyu, run. She's not dead yet. Kunyu was completely stunned. He was almost cut in half, yet he wasn't dead. Then Quan Xiaxia saw the evil insect queen bite down on Kunyu's head. Those who often act recklessly know that tricking others into going to their deaths and then gleefully picking up the spoils is basic procedure. The man in front of us is different. He not only flirts with the female nurse, but also flirts with all the female nurses in the hospital. Seeing that the queen of the evil insects is about to swallow the male lead, Kunyu, everyone on the scene can't help but praise how great his teeth are. The demon is known for its tough skin. It dares to swallow this. On the other hand, Kunyu really is too tough. The queen of the evil insects may have also realized that Kunyu is hard to chew. She decided to just swallow it all down directly, but just then, the evil insect queen suddenly twisted her neck midway through swallowing. It was as if someone had forcefully pushed against her throat. Then a fist covered in purple blood burst out from the back of the evil insect queen's neck. Immediately after, Kunyu's entire naked body also crawled out from there. Xiaxia looked at Kunyu, whose face was filled with anger. He hurriedly shouted, Don't whip him yet. Pick up the energy points first. Unexpectedly, Kunyu rolled his eyes and fainted. He fell straight onto Quan Xiaxia's ample bosom. He landed unharmed, a perfect head pillow impact. At this moment, the hearts of those inside and outside the arena who cared about Kunyu were lifted into their throats. Principal Yang even directly demanded that the medical team enter the arena. Yuna and Yuli were also extremely worried at this moment. Not sure how much time passed, the unconscious Kunyu only felt a flash of red in front of his eyes. A line of text appeared before him. Congratulations, host, for devouring a level 5 demon soul. Demon power activated. You've also gained 2 skills. Kunyu became so excited that he woke up from his coma. The on-duty miter nurse hurried over. You reawake, young student. How do you feel? Wait a moment, I'll call the doctor right now. Kunyu looked at the nurse and thought to himself, do you minotaurs usually eat this well? No one told me about this. He didn't pay attention to the little cow running away. Kunyu hurriedly began to check his newly acquired abilities. He was afraid he was just dreaming. Then the blood-red panel with various detailed information popped up. He thought he would only be a reckless person in this life. But to think he actually had this kind of ability, why didn't it show earlier? But why hadn't it awakened before? Does he need to rely on devouring souls to grow? Truly worthy of being a demon, it's really intense. But now that I'm awake, let's try the new skill. Thinking this, Kunyu was eager to give it a try. Then he began to gather his power. Here it comes. The feeling is here. Suddenly the bandages wrapped around Kunyu's hands exploded. Then Kunyu's middle finger on his right hand. It's covered in layers of armor. It looks incredibly strong. But Kunyu is dumbfounded. Just one. And it's the middle finger. What the hell? What's the point of just one finger? Is it for emergency use in the bathroom or something? That's really not friendly to the butt. But luckily, Kunyu had accumulated quite a bit of energy before. He directly spent 1,000 energy to smash it down. Instantly, the armor rapidly expanded. In the blink of an eye, it covered the entire palm. And it wasn't over yet. As Kunyu continuously injected more energy, the bandages on his entire right arm completely exploded. Then a whole set of incredibly cool over-the-top armor appeared. It fully covered Kunyu's entire right arm. Kunyu couldn't help but exclaim, "This is so damn cool. It feels like he's becoming a warrior in armor." Kunyu couldn't wait to throw a punch. He wanted to test the power of the armor. Just at that moment, the nurse who had run out had returned with the doctor. The strong wind from his punch blew onto the doctor, but it was fine. The little nurse's short skirt rode up. Ivan glimpsed a bit of purple. This scene caused Kunyu and the doctor to have a nosebleed. They both gave a thumbs up. After a bit of a commotion, the doctor gave Kunyu a quick checkup. He nodded repeatedly, "Little brother, your body's quite something." A day later, his internal injuries are almost healed. "You'll be able to leave the hospital in a month or so." Kunyu exclaimed in surprise, "A month or so?" "The one-on-one elimination match is the day after tomorrow." The doctor shook his head with a smile. He said as he walked out, "What competition are you even talking about? You've broken 7 or 8 bones. Get some rest." After the doctor left, Kunyu had another idea. Maybe do have a way. Flesh regeneration beginner skill. If I could upgrade it to intermediate with 5,000 energy points, it should be fine. But Kunyu just used all his energy on the demon armor. So, Kunyu unleashed his wicked glare on the little nurse in front of him. "Sorry, nurse, but in order to recover quickly from my injuries, I have to offend you." With that thought, I extended my right hand and grabbed directly onto the nurse's full, perky buttocks. This made the nurse scream sharply. The nurse, her face flushed, covered her butt. She looked at Kunyu and shouted angrily, "What are you doing?" Kunyu quickly explained it was purely an accident. I just wanted to stretch my hand out. But actually, when he saw the added energy points, he was secretly overjoyed. Looking at the angry nurse leaving, Kunyu felt somewhat helpless. These energy points were nothing compared to Aunt Yona's, but Kunyu also knew you can't just shear one sheep. So a more sinister plan was born. The next day, in the corridors of V Hospital, nurses and patients chatted and laughed cheerfully, a harmonious doctor-patient relationship. But just then a gust of wind swept through the corridor. The nurses were terrified. Their already short skirts were about to be blown up to their waists. It's such a heart-stopping scene. And the culprit behind all this is none other than the male lead Kunyu. It's obvious this isn't his first time. He's so smooth and experienced. The nurses are looking at him with murderous intent. Kunyu smiled slightly at this scene, looking like a master, and said, 7 black ones and a white one. 2 pink ones, 1 halter top, and 1 C-string. The female nurses were even more disgusted after that. In contrast, the male patients were all silently giving thumbs up with tears in their eyes. But the next second their smiles vanished, because Kunyu not only took advantage of the nurses, but also stole their underwear and made them run around naked. The day of the Gaezong League's one-on-one challenge. The stadium's audience stands were already packed. Yuli said with some regret, "What a pity. Kunyu clearly killed a level 5 evil insect queen, but he's unable to participate in the competition due to his injuries." Yuli smiled but didn't say anything more. At that moment, the stadium announcer's voice rang out. "Please have Kunyu from the 3rd high school battle with Lurengia from the 2nd high school." Yuli was still a little uncertain. She was completely shocked when she heard it a second time. She asked Yuna, "Mom, did I hear wrong? Isn't Kunyu seriously injured? How could he be here?" On the other hand, in the competition arena, Kunyu was wearing a hospital gown. He walked up with his chest puffed out, full of confidence. Friends who often act cheap know? Teasing the little nurse is just routine. It's not surprising to tease all the nurses in the hospital. But this man in front of me actually played dirty on the field. He poked eyes, stole peaches, and killed with dirty tricks. He spared no effort, making people call him shameless. The male lead Kunyu, wearing a hospital gown and humming a tune, walked onto the competition field. His opponent across from him was stunned. Is this guy really here to fight? He's not here to scam me, right? At this moment, Kunyu was overjoyed. He took a few steps and approached his opponent, Dear Mana. Then he immediately performed a 90-degree bow. Please instruct me. The initially worried Dear Mana thought to himself, I'm so dead. He had actually forgotten the most basic etiquette, so he quickly bent down and bowed. The next second, Kunyu's eyes flashed red and he suddenly attacked. A hand strike landed squarely on the exposed back of Dear Man's head. The force was so great that it smashed him into the ground. He instantly turned into an ostrich. Even the judge couldn't watch it any longer. If it weren't for the rules, he would have wanted to go up and beat up Kunyu. In the end, he could only helplessly announce Kunyu's victory. This scene made people who knew Kunyu in the stands feel so embarrassed that they were almost scraping the floor with their toes, especially Yuna and Longla, mother and daughter. They kept saying they didn't know him, and in the following days of one-on-one matches, Kunyu, with his shameless adaptability, helped him defeat opponents one after another until this battle. In this battle, his opponent was the green mantis from the previous chicken dinner competition, Tang Lion. Tang Lion stared intently at Kunyu, said through gritted teeth, "Big guy, we meet again? It's time to settle the score." Saying this, he grabbed the cloak and threw it away. Meanwhile, Tang Lion was wearing a full-body suit of armor. Two brand-new long swords reflected a faint gleam. They looked incredibly sharp. Kunyu scoffed, unafraid. He stood there humming and howling, making a series of gestures. Finally striking a pose, he blurted out, "Wing Chun Win." This battle truly is a clash of titans. The arrogant young master of the Green Mantis clan and the despicable horned demon's son. No matter how you look at it, it's guaranteed to be exciting. Tang Lion sized up Kunyu, her brow furrowed, and asked, "Where's your weapon?" Kunyu confidently patted his chest. "My body's my strongest weapon." Tang Lion shouted to speak properly. Kunyu shrugged, "I can't afford one." Tang Lion sighed in frustration and said, "I'm not taking advantage of you." With that, she put her twin blades away. He immediately reached out his hand, trying to take off the armor. The host gave a little push and jumped out. "If you're going to do this, I won't be sleepy anymore." In the end, Tang Lion still said with a red face, "This armor can be taken off. I am not wearing anything underneath, so you're out of luck." Kunyu shouted, "Don't. It's just that I wasn't wearing any clothes." "It's fine. No one's watching. I'll just take my clothes off too." Instantly, Kunyu, who had been seen as despicable and worthless by the audience, suddenly appeared tall and heroic. "This kid's alright. He really is looking out for everyone's benefit." Tang Lion's face turned cold upon hearing this, and she sharply said, "Okay, let me help you take it off first." Then a green light shot out, striking directly at Kunyu. Kunyu's arm instantly enveloped in armor, blocking the attack of the green light. But before the green light dissipated, Tang Lion was already close, beginning attack Kunyu with extremely high frequency. Kunyu was now too busy to defend against the attacks. If I faced Tang Lion in this state on the field, I'm afraid I wouldn't have had a chance to add energy points before being eliminated. Tang Lion, with her high-speed attacks, was also secretly surprised. She thought that putting on this armor would easily defeat this big oaf, but he was surprisingly resilient. No, the Tang family cannot lose. Thinking this, Tang Lion shouted and unleashed her full firepower, instantly activating the drawn twin blades. Their level 3 armed implements, Thunder Mantis Blade. Kunyu was stunned for a moment. While this girl is a super, she actually went berserk. Tang Lion raised her long blade and charged towards Kunyu at incredible speed. In an instant, it collided with Kinyu's defending arms. Kunyu immediately felt a tremor in his arms and thought, "This is bad. If this keeps up, I definitely won't be able to block it. I might even lose a limb." The move that made her lose momentum last time, she probably won't fall for it again. In that case, I'll have to take a gamble. As she was charging, Tang Lion suddenly felt Kinyu's arms loosen. A feeling of joy surged in his heart. It seems that this big fool can't hold on any longer. He exerted more force again, directly shaking off Kinyu's arms. The twin blade stabbed straight into Kinyu's abdomen. Kunyu immediately spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Tang Lion's expression relaxed, muttering, "I finally won." But Kinyu sneered maliciously, "The one who won is me." With that, he gathered his strength. He actually used his strong muscles to clamp the twin blades. Unable to pull them out, then he punched towards Tang Lion. This punch hit Tang Lion directly in the chest and abdomen, shattering the armor. And it wasn't over. Kunyu caught up to the flying Tang Lion and punched downwards. The force was so great, the ground cracked open, and Tang Lion fell into a complete coma, losing all combat ability. She lost the ability to fight. The monkey stealing peaches, the dry ear kill, the twin dragons playing with pearls, poking eyes blind. Those who often act cheap know, these are all basic moves. And this man before us, on the battlefield, throws chili powder, making his opponents cry and regret their decisions. As the Greenback Mantis clan's Tang Lion falls to the ground, unable to rise, he completely lost his fighting ability. Naturally, the male protagonist, Kunyu, won the match. Kunyu spat out a mouthful of blood. He then forcefully pulled out the two knives stuck in his body. The wounds on his body were visibly beginning to heal. But at that moment, Kunyu heard a heavy object fall behind him. Kunyu turned around. "I can't believe it, Quan Xiaoxia has fallen onto my battlefield." I was stunned for a moment. What's going on? Did I win and reward myself by throwing her over? But when I looked closely, I noticed that Quan Xiaoxia was covered in injuries. I quickly picked her up and said, Ping Ping, have you turned into a street dog now? This look doesn't suit you. Although she didn't say it out loud, Kunyu quickly discovered upon inspection that this foolish dog actually had 12 fractures all over her body. You should know, she's second only to Tang Lion among the third-level martial artists. Who did this to her? Kwansei Axio struggled to open her eyes and whispered, Kunyu, be careful of space martial techniques. Kunyu furrowed his brows. Space martial techniques? That's the most difficult technique in external martial arts to master. And just then, a referee in the arena shouted, the winner is Wangzi. Wangzi, what are you doing? Immediately after, Kunyu felt a gust of wind coming from behind him. The target was Kwansei Axio in his arms. Kunyu jumped forward suddenly, holding the dog Xiao. He narrowly avoided the powerful stomp coming at him. When Kunyu got up, he looked at the person in front of him and spoke. Kid, you don't follow the martial ethics, huh? In front of him stood another level 3 martial artist. His name was Wangji. Wangji shrugged and said, don't be nervous. I was just greeting you. Kunyu sized Wangji up, then curled his lip. I don't do fencing or anything gay. I only like busty beauties. I'm not interested in you. After saying this, he completely silenced Wangji. Wangji didn't know whether to respond or not. Finally, he forcefully changed the subject. He glanced at Quan Xiaoxiao on the ground and said, don't worry, she's just a meeting gift. Next time we meet, that's when we'll settle things between us. Only then did Kunyu understand. Wangji was targeting him all along. Quan Xiaoxiao was merely collateral damage. As the emergency team arrived and carried Quan Xiaoxiao away, Kunyu still smiled and said, thanks, stupid dog. Resting? I will cherish the information you brought. The furious dog Xiaoxiao lies on the stretcher, shouting loudly, I'm not dead. At this moment, the dog-headed host jumped out once again. With great passion, he shouted, the exciting moment has arrived. After several days of intense battles, our final 6 have emerged. They will clash once again. Our champion is about to be born. Now, contestants, keep an eye on your next opponent. In the next match, Kunyu's opponent is Wang Zi. Kunyu looks at the match schedule. Looks like he needs to prepare well, in the blink of an eye. And so we arrive at the day of Kunyu's match against Wang Zi. Wang Zi had already taken his position on the field, but Kunyu was nowhere to be seen. Zioyer and Yuna and the others sitting together were initially quite anxious. Then they saw a figure hurrying in from the entrance. It was Kunyu in a different outfit. He was laden with various bottles and jars. His walk was a clanging mess. He completely baffled the audience. What kind of outfit is that? What's all that stuff hanging on him? Seasonings. Kunyu laughed arrogantly. He leaped into the arena. Wangji sized him up and softly said, hey, are you going to stew yourself in a wok because you lost? Kunyu smiled and raised a hand. Stew or not, none of your business. With the referee's call to begin, Wangji pulled out his greatsword. Grinned cruelly. You Horn Demon tribe, you're all just tough talk. Kunyu was stunned. What? Horn Demon clan? Me. Why don't I know myself? The next moment, Wang Zi, who had been standing in front of Kunyu, had already flashed behind Kunyu. A golden greatsword carrying a strong wind slashed down. Kunyu didn't even move. A layer of armor appeared on his body. The greatsword smashed against it and was actually deflected. The moment he was knocked back, Wang Zi laughed loudly and said, Demon armor. Not bad, quite the ability. For a demon to gain such power isn't easy. But that's all it is. Wang Zi, still midair, swung his large sword. It flew directly towards Kunyu. Kunyu threw a punch directly at the large sword, but the great sword suddenly paused. It then flew directly backward. It turned out that Wang Zi had wrapped an iron chain around the grip of the great sword. As Wang Zi landed, he used the iron chain to control the great sword. He and Kunyu were locked in combat. Kunyu couldn't block in time. The great sword struck, sending Kunyu flying. Wang Zi pulled the great sword back and yanked it onto his shoulder. He gave a thumbs down. Weakling. You lost. The airborne Kunyu stabilized his position and smiled. Don't speak too soon. He then pointed at the sky. Why don't you take a look up there? As soon as Wang Zi looked up, red powder and liquid spilled out from inside. This time Wang Zi was in big trouble. Tears were streaming from the spiciness, and he was coughing uncontrollably. Those bottles were actually filled with chili powder and black pepper. Kunyu saw the scheme and had to act. He immediately leaped toward Wang Zi. Wang Zi was coughing and sneezing, but he didn't forget to threaten. I originally planned to let you go because we're both of royal blood, but you were the one asking for death. Having said that, Wang Zi's body emitted a bright red light. Countless streams of black smoke gushed out from him, instantly filling the entire arena, and Kunyu was enveloped within it. From the stands, Quan Xiaoxiao exclaimed, that's the move. He used this move before to block my vision, dodging my attacks and defeating me. At this moment, Wang Zi within the black smoke, my body has undergone a dramatic transformation. Exaggerated muscles began to bulge. Countless sharp spikes grew out. My height even increased to over 3 meters. This Wang Zi is also a demon, and a royal member of the beheading demon clan. The demon king Wangji roared angrily, "Tremble! You will pay for what you have done." He didn't even finish speaking when Kinyu's fist landed directly on his face. It almost knocked him to the ground. Kinyu rubbed his wrist and disdainfully said, "We're the same species. Why are you pretending with me?" Wangji was furious. He shouted, "You're courting death." "Courting death? I'll help you with that." The match is heating up, with chili powder being thrown around, and Chu, your words are slapping you in the face. Friends who often act cheap know this is just a routine. These are all standard moves. But the man in front of us, if he doesn't like you, he won't waste a single word. One kick and he'll have you in a mess, neutered for free. At this moment on the field, the true nature of Wangji is revealed and his anger rises. He swears to kill the male lead Kunyu. Billowing black smoke seemed to cover the entire arena. Kunyu was the first to be enveloped in it. Ziryan frowned and asked, "This student's abilities are rare. Yuna, do you know his background?" Yuna also frowned, thought for a moment and replied, "There are many possibilities, but no matter which one, it's not something the current Kinyu can handle." Ku surrounded by smoke. If he says he's not anxious, that would be a lie. He can feel Demon Lord Z moving around him, but it's erratic. Before Kinyu can pinpoint his location, Wangji's blade strikes Kinyu's back. When Kinyu turns and throws a punch, Wangji once again transforms into black mist and vanishes without a trace. By the time he appeared again, he was already in mid-air. He said, "Stupid horn demon. Do you think you're the only royal here?" While speaking, he swung the large sword again, striking Kinyu's back. Before Kinyu could even retaliate, Wangji vanished once more. But Kinyu caught a hint from his words and asked, "Are you also a royal?" Wangji watched Kinyu wildly swinging his weapon. He let out an evil laugh and said, "I am of the Decapitation Demon King clan." The next instant, the great sword directly slashed towards Kinyu's neck, clearly intending to decapitate him. But when the great sword reached Kinyu, it was grabbed directly by Kinyu with one hand. Wangji was shocked. Impossible. Even the Demon King doesn't have such high defense. You're not a demon knight. What are you exactly? Wangji had no idea that Kinyu had just used skill points to upgrade the demon armor skill from beginner to intermediate. The defense is on a completely different level. Kinyu, completely unharmed, chuckled and said, "I'm your father." Then he landed a crushing punch right on Wangji's chest and abdomen. In his demon form, Wangji was tough and resilient, but still sustained internal injuries from the blow. Just as Kinyu was about to throw a second punch, Wangji disappeared again. Kinyu sneered and said dismissively, "What the hell is this about beheading the Demon King clan? Damn it. Even Yudi from Modu would acknowledge you as his sworn father. Even a dog is less cowardly than you." Meanwhile, Wangji was hovering in midair behind Kinyu, pondering a counter strategy. Kinyu is hype, but as long as I can't break through his spatial martial arts, then the victor will ultimately be me. Thinking this, he once again raised his greatsword. He struck downward forcefully at Kinyu. What Wangji didn't see was Kinyu's face wearing a sinister and scheming smile. In the audience seats outside the arena, the crowd watched as the black mist churned, but they could see nothing, hear nothing. Suddenly, the black mist on the stage spun rapidly, and then completely disappeared, and the scene before them was beyond shocking to everyone. They saw Kinyu holding a sword with one hand, pressed against the neck of a demon, and that demon actually had one of its horns severed, fallen to the ground. The audience was stunned. How did two people go up, and now only one remains? Where did this demon come from, and why is one of its horns broken? Just now, when Wangji tried to ambush Kinyu, Kinyu caught the falling greatsword with a simple turn of his body. Wangji's face was full of disbelief. How was that possible? Then Kinyu smirked and unleashed a million-pound groin kick, hitting Wangji right in the family jewels. It was a complete disaster. Even though Wangji was in such a state, he still couldn't help but ask, "How did you know I was behind you?" Kinyu laughed loudly. "Did you really think those seasonings were for cooking?" With that, he raised Wangji's great sword and swung it directly at Wangji. Wangji wanted to raise his arm to block it, but Kinyu feinted and circled to his side. He suddenly swung his sword and severed one of Wangji's demon horns. What a heart-wrenching move! Wangji was stunned. As the proud member of the demon clan, his horn was actually severed. Immediately after, Kinyu suppressed him with his great sword. This was the scene everyone witnessed. The time returns to the present. A demon has appeared on the field. Naturally, the various cavalry regiments won't just sit idly by. As an 8th-level martial artist, Acrylica, the leader of the Blade Sheep Knights, reaches into the gap in her chest and pulls out her personal weapon. Then she charges into the field, shouting, "Young students, step back. Leave the rest to us." Kunyu, however, had no intention of retreating just yet. He couldn't just let a demon, who had been after his life, live. That was not Kinyu's style. So he raised his knife, intending to take Wangji out first. But just then, a burst of intense purple-black smoke erupted from around Wangji. It was filled with purple lightning as well. Kunyu was blasted away on the spot. Seeing this scene, Wangji was overjoyed and shouted loudly, "Father, In the center of the smoke and dust, a figure gradually emerged. A tall, riding a massive sword, a powerful demon revealed itself, and Kinyu, who had been blasted away, was directly caught by Acrylia. Acrylic Yake looked at Kinyu and softly said, "You little fool." Kinyu was stunned. Could it be that she liked him? But before he could react, Acrylic Yake suddenly yelled, "I told you to step back." With that, she threw Suyu backward. Then she pointed her long sword toward the powerful demon that had just appeared. Laughing loudly, she said, "Damn it, a level 9 decapitation demon king? Good." Wangzi, held captive by the beheaded demon lord, has also revealed his true form. He stammered an explanation, "Father, I'm sorry. I only wanted to infiltrate and kill all the young orc elites. But I didn't expect to be foiled by a low-blooded horned demon." Saying this, he angrily pointed at Kinyu, who was protected behind Acrylic. Kinyu smiled mischievously. "In our place, only pets care about bloodlines." The decapitation demon king looked up at Kinyu. His pupils constricted. He then pointed at Kinyu. Wangji shouted from the side, "You filthy breed. You anger my father, and you're as good as dead." But the next moment, the decapitation demon king spoke. "You have the potential to become my subordinate. To submit to me is your honor." Kinyu was completely speechless. "It's not. You demons one by one. Why do you all like making others your subordinates?" Grow and strike, crush the eggs, sterilize, kick, kill, break the heart, break the horns. My frequently annoying friends all know these are basic operations. But this man before me is different, refusing the Demon King's recruitment with a firm refusal, and even being taken advantage of by the beautiful women. The people in the audience watched as the Demon King suddenly appeared, and immediately tried to recruit the male lead, Kunyu. The atmosphere completely fell into silence. Yuna was even more nervous, bowing her body, as if she was about to rush up. In contrast, Kunyu on the field remained incredibly calm. Captain Acrylic from the opposing team jokingly said, "Little student, they were trying to poach you. What do you think about that?" Kunyu took a sip and replied, very sincere, "But I'm afraid it'll hurt my eyes, so I won't go." Upon hearing this, Acrylic burst out laughing. "Did you hear that, you ugly freak? People say you're too ugly. I say go back to your demon realm. Don't come out and pollute our eyes." With that, the long sword in her hand blazed with flames, and she swung it fiercely towards the Decapitation Demon King. The Decapitation Demon King's expression was cold. A blast of intense fire erupted before him, matched Acrylicious flames, even surpassing them. Acrylicia no longer held her ground, leaping backward and cursing. "Damn it. One level higher and that sheep would have been crushed." The Demon King said nothing more as he decapitated the monster. He simply grabbed Wangji and walked toward the fiery portal behind them. Before leaving, he glanced at Kinyu and said, "You'll regret this." Wangji was even more disgusted by Kinyu. The energy points generated were almost on par with Aunt Yona's. With that, the demon disappeared from the arena. The overflowing flames gradually died down. Seeing that Kinyu wasn't recruited by the demon lord, Yuri finally let out a sigh of relief. Yuna, however, furrowed her brows slightly, as if deep in thought. Kunyu shakily approached the referee, muttering, "Bro, aren't you going to declare me the winner? Good grief, you've been slacking off at work so much, you're almost building a fish pond." Acrylicia heard this. While putting the knife back, she smiled and said, "Don't you bother with that. Now even a level 9 Demon King can sneak into the arena, which means it's already unsafe. Don't even think about the championship, just evacuate everyone first." Linlu was stunned. "I struggled so hard to participate in this competition. I finally made it to the finals, and you tell me the competition is cancelled. Are you making a fool of me?" But Kinyu couldn't do anything about it. He was half dragged, half pushed to the waiting car. Kinyu was still very unhappy. He muttered to himself, "I now suspect the organizers cancelled the match to prevent a demon like me from winning the prize. It was a last-minute cancellation." Just then, a voice sounded from behind. "The league organizers aren't that petty." Turning around, I saw the 5 Anu sisters standing behind me. "Oh, 5 Anu sisters, are you leaving too?" The youngest of the 5 Anu sisters pouted and said, "Well, our school is down to just this one vehicle. The older sister insisted on thanking you before leaving." Kunyu smirked. "Don't stop with that act. What are your family's tea trees going to sell me some tea leaves now? If you really want to thank me, I..." Before Kinyu could finish his sentence, Swanxiaxiao threw herself into Kinyu's arms and hugged him. Before Kinyu could react, Quanxiaxio, blushing, rushed onto her school bus with her sisters. Only after the bus slowly drove away did Kinyu realize, "This is ridiculous. I just got groped." However, Kunyu didn't think much of it. He boarded his school bus and left the competition venue. On the way, Kunyu stared out the window in a daze. He recalled the words the demon said as she left, "You'll regret this. I don't even know what this means. I don't know how much time has passed." The bus suddenly began to shake violently. It felt like it was about to flip over. Kunyu quickly looked out the window. He saw several hellhounds, their bodies engulfed in flames, chasing the bus. They kept attacking. Kunyu was stunned. "Is this the devil's final move? This is getting serious." The 2 guard soldiers in the car shouted at the driver, "Yax, hurry up and take the students to the nearby shelter." Quickly, the driver nodded anxiously, but a sinister smile appeared on his face. Then the bus started drifting wildly down the street, as if it had entered drift mode. It took only a few minutes to reach the shelter's entrance. The car didn't stop and drove straight into the shelter. As the gate closed, the guard soldiers finally breathed a sigh of relief. They were temporarily safe at least. Then they began to help the students disembark in an orderly manner. But the teacher who drove the car then said to a guard soldier, "A few of you come over here. Waiting here isn't a solution. I think we should send someone out for help. Otherwise, if the enemy finds us first, this iron gate might not hold them off." The soldiers thought it made sense, so some went towards the gate. But Kinyu suddenly stopped them. "Wait a minute. We'll discuss your matter later. I have a private matter to discuss with this teacher." The soldiers naturally recognized Kinyu, so they advised him to wait until the crisis was over before discussing private matters. But when the soldiers tried to push Kinyu away, they found they couldn't move him at all. Kinyu raised a hand and pushed the soldier away, walking straight towards the driver teacher. The teacher looked at Kinyu nervously. He forced a stiff smile. "What's the matter, classmate?" The next second, the driving instructor suddenly vomited blood because Kinyu had activated his demonic armor and had a heart-to-heart talk with him, a literal one. Kunyu's eyes were filled with killing intent. "Teacher, can you tell me why you hate me so much?" The driver teacher endured the pain, still unsure of the situation. Kunyu exerted more force with his hand and repeated, "Why does this stranger who I have never met hate me feel so jealous?" It turns out from just now, system notifications started popping up from the driver teacher. These were energy points gained from jealousy. Several soldiers thought Kinyu had lost control and was rampaging. They quickly raised their guns and aimed at Kinyu. But at that moment, the driver teacher let out a cruel laugh. "I didn't expect to fall into the hands of this little bastard." Immediately after, a dark purple energy aura began to emanate from his body. His entire body seemed to melt away. When the aura dissipated, what appeared before them was no longer the driver teacher. It turns out to be a phantasm demon, the best at disguise in the demon tribe. In front of everyone, they insulted the Demon King, making it impossible for them to save face. Angered, the Demon King sent demons to hunt them down. Friends who often act cheaply know this well. These are all basic moves. But the man in front of us is even more outrageous. Not only does he touch a female dragon all over, but he's also getting hot and heavy with a beautiful succubus. Watching the male lead, Kunyu, strike with one claw, the driving instructor reverted to his true form. The surrounding soldiers were also completely stunned. They never expected this man with thick eyebrows and big eyes was actually a fake. They couldn't help but express their gratitude to Kinyu. Kunyu, however, just smiled, but he didn't retract his demon armor. Instead, the energy grew even stronger. Then with a wave of his hand, a purple light flashed. 3 students vanished into thin air. Just as several soldiers were about to draw their weapons again, the 3 fallen students transformed. They became 3 phantom demons. The leading soldier was dumbfounded. "This is a bit too overwhelmingly awesome." Kunyu chuckled, saying it was too obvious. He hadn't lied either. The system keeps warning about fire demons and energy. Orcs never envy themselves. Only demons envy demon. But at that moment, a scream came from the deep shelter. Kunyu and the soldiers' faces changed dramatically. They hurriedly ran towards the inside. Since the demons brought them here, then they must have laid an ambush, waiting for several people to run inside. Kinyu was stunned. They really went all out to kill him. They even sent out the Hellfire Dragon. Although it's just a juvenile, it's still very strong. As soon as the Hellfire Dragon saw Kinyu, it stared straight at him. He even spat out the thing in his mouth. Then came a blast of fiery breath, sprayed directly at Kinyu. Kunyu's figure flickered, dodging the blast. The dragon's breath hit the wall, blowing it to pieces. Kinyu's eyes nearly popped out. "Damn serious? How am I supposed to fight this?" Just as Kinyu was shocked, a soldier shouted, "Be careful." Yu quickly turned around and saw the Hell Dragon had already closed in. Immediately shouted, "Damn, that's one huge black potato. No one who is this big dares to say they look like a black potato." Then it started chasing Kunyu, spitting fire. Kunyu ran while explaining, "I was wrong. You're much rounder than a potato." The Hellfire Dragon became increasingly furious, and so pursued even more vigorously. What it didn't see was the radiant smile on Kinyu's face. Just like that, Kinyu circled twice and suddenly leaped up. The dragon. But the next second, a bus suddenly stopped right in front of him. The Hell Dragon didn't brake in time. It crashed straight into it. This kind of school bus is made of special alloys. The fact that the Hellhound couldn't scratch it after such a long time says it all. With that, the Hell Dragon was knocked out cold. Meanwhile, Kunyu performed a series of graceful moves in mid-air, then landed steadily on the ground. The students watching all gave him perfect scores. The demon dragon's head is stuck in the bus and can't get out. He's absolutely furious. Kunyu watched this scene feeling very pleased. The more upset the demon dragon gets, the more energy points he gains. It's incredibly satisfying. And now what Kinyu needs to do is to squeeze every bit of value out of the demon dragon. After all, a demon without sheep's wool isn't a good protagonist. Not long after, the 5 eyes of the hell dragon were filled with tears. Now it even wanted to die. There's nothing to be done. Kinyu's singing is just too awful, and ripping dragon scales off hurts too much. As Kinyu sang 18 touches, he was groping the dragon up and down. He tore off all of its dragon scales cleanly. The soldiers were completely shocked. Kinyu truly is a godlike figure. Not even a female dragon is spared. They couldn't understand what was happening, but were deeply shaken. Just as Kinyu was enthusiastically tearing off the scales, a voice came through the soldiers' radio. The Kenny City convoy is under attack. Quickly send reinforcements. The convoy from Quan City? Isn't that silly dog? So I stopped what I was doing and went to the soldiers saying, "Is this your guard team's dedicated radio?" The soldier nodded and said, "It's just in time. Cultivation needs support." He hadn't finished speaking when Kinyu grabbed the walkie-talkie and dashed out in a flash. The soldier froze for a moment, then immediately shouted, "Damn it. I told you to protect the students, so I can go rescue them." "Who the hell told you to go?" As for the 4th district of Dog City, which was attacked, it had already turned into a sea of fire and ruins. 2 succubi are still patrolling inside. The voluptuous succubus complained, "I'm suffocating. Why won't they let us kill?" And they've locked all those from the Canine City underground. The other green succubus explained, "I heard. It's because the Blood Bowl demon was captured by the orcs. They need the Canine City hostages to negotiate." The voluptuous succubus whispered in surprise, "Blood Bowl demon? Isn't that the top-tier demon bloodline? It can burn its blood to forcibly enhance its own strength. How could such a precious demon be captured?" The green succubus rolled her eyes and said, "How would I know? I only told you don't tell anyone else." The sexy succubus pouted, "Got it. It's just that life is so boring. I really want to—" She didn't finish her sentence. A figure suddenly dashed into the space between her chest and the 2 large mountains. Then her foot tripped and she fell backward. It was Kinyu who collided with her. He quickly grabbed the slim waist of the seductive demon. He asked, "Are you alright?" The seductive demon had never seen such a handsome and charming demon like Kinyu. She was so mesmerized that she almost drooled. The green demon quickly rushed over and stopped the seductive demon from pouncing. "Windao, which unit are you from? How did you end up here?" Kinyu smiled as he took out a scale. "I was hunting with Lord Hellfire Dragon. But there was a bit of trouble. Lord Hellfire Dragon asked me to return." "This is the token." Lumpy Demon glanced at it. "It's definitely Hellfire Dragon's scale. But why is it covered in blood?" The explosive succubus didn't care about that. She directly hung it on Kinyu. "Since we're all demons, it's easy. We'll take the handsome guy to rejoin the main force." Kinyu looked down. The scenery was breathtaking. He exclaimed inwardly, "These succubi are so fierce, truly fierce." So I followed the 2 succubi to their gathering place, which was also where the city's hostages were being held. Meanwhile, the 5 Inu sisters were locked in a huge iron cage underground. Inu Xiaoxio was still comforting her younger sisters when she heard someone shouting outside, "Silly dog, are you there?" Quan Xiaoxio was delighted. "Kinyu, how did you get here?" But upon closer inspection, she discovered Kinyu's face was covered in various lipstick marks. No doubt about it, it was the succubus riding a mother dragon humming a song. The succubus is also fondling him. Those friends who often act like fools know. Even among the shameless, this is top tier. But this man before me is even more outrageous. He infiltrated the enemy's headquarters alone, only to be relentlessly pursued by his own people. When Quan Xiaoxio saw Kinyu walk in with lipstick all over his face, her first reaction was that it was over. Kinyu, that scoundrel, has colluded with demons and succubi. But before Kinyu could say anything, the stunning succubus walked in. She giggled and said, "Hey handsome, have you found your ex-girlfriend?" Quan Xiaoxio was stunned. She was about to curse at Kinyu for talking nonsense. But to her surprise, Kinyu covered her mouth with his hand. Then he smiled wickedly and said, "Alright, stop obsessing over me. I'm not the kind of man you can fantasize about. I'm just a legend." Then the seductive succubus walked up and hooked her arm around Kinyu's. She even rubbed against him. "That's right, little dog. You two aren't suited for each other, tilde." After that, Kinyu wrapped his arm around the seductive succubus and walked out, laughing and chatting. Watching them walk away, Quan Xiaoxio hadn't said anything yet, but Fifth Sister started cursing these 2 damn dogs. "It's wrong. We also don't." And Quan Xiaoxio spits out a communication device shaped like an earpiece from her mouth. It was the one Kinyu had given her when he blocked her mouth. Inside the ear. Suddenly, the voice of the commander-in-chief paused. He asked in confusion, "Why is there an extra channel? Who is connecting to the communication?" Quan Xiaoxio quickly responded, "This is Daqing High School's motorcade. Kinyu, using a special identity, has secretly infiltrated. The earphones have been delivered to us. Meanwhile, the outside world is already engulfed in flames. Inside a building, a level 6 self-bone demon and a level 4 boundary demon are preparing to form a special task force to retrieve the boiling blood demon, and Kinyu has now mingled among the demons. Originally, Kinyu didn't want to get involved in this, But if he could screw them over at the last moment, causing them to fail at the last step, he'd probably earn a lot of energy points. Sounds pretty good after all, so he volunteered to raise his hand. Actually, demons generally don't like doing this kind of thing. Going deep into enemy territory is basically a suicide mission. But to their surprise, aside from Qin Yu, 4 other demons raised their hands to participate. A level 3 Scythe demon, a level 4 Flame demon, a level 4 Armored demon, and a level 4 Bone demon. You know, this team setup is actually quite balanced. The level 6 Bone demon on stage was quite pleased to see that there were volunteers. He was very happy. Good. You're all doing great. Now let's invite the heroes to come up. A few volunteers from the demons walked toward the stage together. The level 6 Bone demon patted the level 4 Bone demon and said, "When you come back this time, I will request a merit for you." These 2 Bone demons are probably related in some way. Seems like there are always people with connections everywhere. The level 6 Bone demon raised his hand and spoke to the barrier demon. "Alright, let's send them off." When Qin Yu heard this, he almost thought it meant they were going to cut off his head. Then he heard the Bone demon continue speaking. "Inside the barrier demon body are countless spatial coordinates. They can teleport you near the blood fiend, but it won't be very precise. The rest will depend on you. You must act before the enemy can react. Find the blood-boiling demon, bring her back." Countless spatial energies surged out from the barrier demon's body, eventually forming a portal. When Qin Yu and the others walked through, after a zing spin, they arrived at a place hanging in midair, descending downward. A few demons just so happened to land at the orcs' camp. What's even more coincidental is that there are orcs patrolling right in front of him. What's even more coincidental is that these orcs just arrived. They don't even know Qin Yu. Qin Yu lies on the ground, calling it a disaster. Hasn't he just thrown himself into the fire? When the orc soldiers saw 5 demons falling from the sky, this tremendous achievement, didn't they just bump into themselves? For a moment, everyone excitedly took out their weapons and charged towards the 5 demons. With the other 4 demons' astonished gazes on him, Qin Yu immediately slipped away and started running. The other 4 demons were furious, jumping up and down in rage. "This is such an embarrassment to our demon kind. Demons will never be slaves." But before they could finish their chant, they saw the opponent throw down their spears and long knives. They all pulled out Gatling guns. My lord, the times have changed. But this is just too damn much. Then, at the command of the orc captain, several Gatling guns fired, blazing through the air. Qin Yu, who had already run out, saw this scene. At this point, anyone who rushes in is a pure idiot, 24-karat gold, so Qin Yu just kept running at full speed. He soon disappeared from the pursuing orc's sight. Qin Yu arrived at the building. He casually found a room and hid inside. Listening to the sounds of footsteps passing outside the door, Qin Yu knew he was safe for now. Although if he revealed his identity, he wouldn't have to hide so desperately. Unfortunately, there was no one around who could prove his identity. Just as Qin Yu was pondering, a low whining sound came from behind him. Qin Yu quickly turned around. He found a young girl bound in a rather compromising position. Her mouth was even gagged with a round object, preventing her from speaking. Qin Yu's first thought was that he had stumbled into some big shots game room. But upon closer inspection, it was actually a demon. His mind racing, a plan formed, and he said with a smile, "So it's a cellmate. Don't panic, I'll just borrow a spot, love, and leave soon." The demon girl shook her head repeatedly. She kept making soft whimpering sounds, as if she wanted to say something. Qin Yu approached the demon girl. He looked down at her and asked, "Do you want to speak?" The demonic girl nodded repeatedly. But the next second, Qin Yu knocked her on the head with his knuckles, knocking her unconscious. Qin Yu let out a long sigh. "All right." Finally quiet. Suddenly footsteps and voices came from outside the door. "Go quickly and see if the boiling blood demon is still there." Qin Yu thought, damn it, but the room was incredibly empty. Only 4 iron pillars are binding the demon girl. There's nowhere to hide. At that moment, the door was open. A few orc patrol members walked in and looked around. They nodded. "It's fine, the blood-boiling demon is still here. No issues." The 2 of them checked around the blood-boiling demon. While talking, "If you ask me, it's better to have the Knights Templar step in. With them guarding everything, it would be safe. Why go through all the trouble?" The other person said, "Compared to our city defense forces, the Knights Templar have greater prestige among the people. The Lord and the city officers have long had issues with them. How could they possibly lower themselves to ask for their help?" As the 2 talked, they didn't notice that Qin Yu was still hanging upside down on the ceiling. Right now, Qin Yu was clinging to the ceiling like a giant spider, but he couldn't hold on much longer. His nails were too sharp, and he was about to lose his grip. The 2 patrol officers finished their check and confirmed no one was there. They then turned and walked out. At that exact moment, Qin Yu fell from the ceiling. Friends who often act like fools know, leaving their companions behind and running off on their own is basic behavior. But the man in front of us is even more outrageous. He actually used a beauty as a cushion, and even crushed his companion's head underfoot. Seeing that the protagonist Kinyu was exhausted, he fell down from the ceiling. Just as two guards came in and closed the door, two voices sounded at the same time. The guards outside didn't notice. Kinyu escaped a catastrophe. And Kinyu, having landed, let out a long sigh of relief. He sat back. Good, good. I wasn't discovered. But wait, what's this in my hand? It's so soft and feels nice to squeeze. He looked down again. He was actually sitting on the bloody demon, and he was holding on to something inappropriate. Seeing the bloody demon struggling and groaning again, Kinyu was indignant and shouted, "Shut the hell up! What's wrong with using this as support? Can't you understand human words?" As soon as Kinyu shouted, he regretted it. Damn it, he even told others to keep their voices down. His own voice was louder than a loudspeaker. Sure enough, the two soldiers immediately demonstrated a dramatic return. They directly pushed the door open and charged in. But as soon as they entered, before they could rush forward to capture Kinyu, they were stunned by the scene before them. Wow, someone is so blatant in taking advantage of the furious blood demon. However, Kinyu had no intention of letting these two guards leave standing. With a swift move, he appeared behind the two men. He said, "Sorry about this." Then he pressed their heads together, making them bump into each other. Though he used a bit too much force, he knocked them unconscious, but it's no big deal. This kid came in and knocked himself out. Then he woke himself up by sitting down heavily. Then he started taking advantage of himself, pinching himself here and there. Now he's knocked out the guard. What kind of operation is this? Kinyu saw that the pursuers had also fallen. He simply looked at the boiling blood demon and smiled. "So you want to talk, huh?" He stepped forward. "I took the spherical object from the Blood Bowl demon's mouth. Tell me your last words." The Blood Bowl demon immediately spoke up. "This young lady is the Blood Bowl demon." The Blood Bowl demon. Kinyu knew, of course, that she was the Blood Bowl demon, but he still looked at her with a scrutinizing expression. "You're the Blood Bowl demon?" Boiling blood demon nods. "That's right, it's me. I am the target you are trying to save." Kinyu smiled. "How do you prove you are the boiling blood demon? Do you have any witnesses?" Boiling blood demon looked at the two soldiers lying on the ground. "They are the witnesses." Kinyu asked again. "Okay. Then do you have any physical evidence?" Fakeshumo said there is. "Only our Fakeshumo has a V-shaped special feature." Kinyu sighed with a smile. "You've already been caught. How do you still have so much evidence?" Fakeshumo's momentum also rose at this moment. "Miss will tell you. This is your good luck. Having the chance to serve Miss is your honor. Normally you're not even worthy of carrying my shoes." But the next second, the Bloodfire demon's expression changed drastically, because Kinyu's hand was already on her neck. At that moment Kinyu smiled and said, "You've made me curious. We demons rely on devouring each other to gain each other's abilities." The Bloodfire demon understood the meaning behind Kinyu's words. Her expression grew even more terrified. "What are you doing? I warn you not to mess around." Kinyu's smile at this moment was full of malice, more villainous than a villain. "Tell me, if I kill you and eat you, wouldn't I be able to obtain your abilities?" Having said that, his grip gradually tightened. Fakeshumo immediately felt short of breath. She struggled desperately. She could feel that this person truly intended to kill her. Just as Fakeshumo's life hung in the balance, an urgent voice rang out from behind Kinyu. "Jiaomo, what are you doing?" Kinyu turned his head slightly and saw the other four demons who had come with him enter the room. A pincer attack was subtly forming. The white bone demon looked at himself and said, "Let go of the fiery blood demon." As soon as the words were spoken, the four of them charged towards Kinyu. Of course, the bone demon was trying to save the fiery blood demon, but a bigger reason was that this credit couldn't be monopolized by a single horn demon. Yet within the encirclement, Kinyu remained completely calm. He reached out and grabbed, placing the fiery blood demon in front of him, and smiled. Her necklace was too tight, and it took some time to loosen it. The bone demon, without suspicion, picked up the blood demon. With a cold grunt, he said, "You're sensible," then turned and walked out. As he walked, he called to the other demons, "Let's go. Wait for the barrier demon to open the portal." In the final moments, Kinyu clearly felt the murderous intent that the bone demon had released when rushing forward earlier. He clearly wants to kill himself. You expected. The next second, several gunshots interrupted him. He was dead without a doubt. This time, it directly scared the few demons chasing him. When the demons turned around, they saw several heavily armed soldiers with weapons waiting for them in the hallway. What's even more outrageous is that the leader actually brought a rocket launcher. The bone demon glanced at the armored demon, who nodded. Then it charged to the front. A huge shield materialized out of thin air. It blocked the soldiers' continuous attacks. Meanwhile, the other demons rushed towards the portal. Kinyu was among them. He was almost there. Kinyu suddenly accelerated and ran to the front. The bone demon was so angry that he shouted, "Slow down, damn it, wait for me, go first." But Kinyu, who was running at the front, suddenly slowed down and moved to the side. Then two sword lights were seen heading towards several demons. The bone demon, originally seeing Kinyu dodge, was about to praise him, but when he looked up, he saw two sword lights and almost cursed on the spot. Standing in their path were the strongest of the Orcish troops, the elephant riders. One bone devil, unable to dodge, was instantly cut in two. The boiling blood devil in his arms was tossed high into the air. Kunyu stood still, not moving a muscle, merely extending a hand. The boiling blood devil fell right into his embrace. He grinned and said, "Hey, this is called fate. What's meant to be will be." Without another word, ignoring the suppressed burning fire demon, he turned and walked towards the portal. Kunyu first shoved the boiling blood demon inside. As he lifted his foot, he heard the self-bone demon's voice, "Save me." Turning around, he saw the self-bone demon, only its upper body remaining. "Save me? My uncle is the leader of this operation. I'll make sure my uncle gives you a lot of benefits." Kunyu, grinning wickedly, approached. He suddenly raised his foot and stomped forcefully on the bone demon's head. The bone demon had already been severely injured, its bones shattered by a blow from the elephant clan. It couldn't withstand Kunyu's kick. It immediately shattered beyond repair, its soul scattering. Kunyu glanced at it, then smiled in satisfaction and said, "Don't worry. I'll have your uncle prepare a beautiful urn for you." At this moment, the orc soldiers were about to catch up. Kunyu didn't stay any longer. "When it comes to undercover work, we go all in." He jumped into the portal. When Kunyu stepped out of the portal, he was greeted by a few skeletal mages. The leader asked, "Jiamo? Am I subordinate, Gamo?" Kunyu thought, "You almost let the truth slip out," but he still got into character, and said with tears streaming down his face, "He fought bravely and died. He didn't even make a sound when he died." Friends who often act foolishly know that abandoning one's companions to run away alone, stepping on a teammate's dog head, these are all basic moves. And this man named Kunyu is even more outrageous. He actually locked the captain outside the safe house while escaping, and even in front of the enemy, he shamelessly played with his female subordinate. Listening to the male protagonist, Kunyu tearfully described the death of the level 4 bone demon. The level 6 bone demon actually felt a bit of relief. Somehow he was plaid, muttering, "Did he really die so unyielding?" Kunyu's expression was serious as he said, "Of course. It's fake." Kunyu's face immediately shifted into a shameless grin as he said, "Let me tell you, that kid died terribly. Not only was he cut in half, but before he died he even begged me for help. It's a pity, though I didn't, to save him." Hearing this, the level 6 bone demon was stunned for a moment. Then she became enraged on the spot, ready to kill Kunyu. But just then Fake Shimo slowly woke up. Bagamo quickly walked over. "Miss Fake Shimo, you're awake. This is our headquarters. How do you feel?" Fake Shimo struggled to sit up. Which hero saved me?" "This young lady will reward him. She will purify his bloodline." When Kunyu heard this, he was excited. He quickly stuck his head out like a turtle and said, "It's me." Fake Shimo looked over. "Damn, isn't this the guy who wanted to crush me to death in the cell?" Terrifying memory surged back. The boiling blood demon shrieked. The sharp, piercing sound echoed through the room. The surrounding demons were in agony from the shock. Kunyu wasn't going to tolerate her bad behavior. He rushed forward and delivered a knockout blow with his hand. He knocked the boiling blood demon unconscious. When it came to knocking out the boiling blood demon, Kunyu was a master, effortlessly subduing her. The bone demon was dumbfounded. "How are you so skilled?" But before the bone demon could ask, several bat demons descended from the sky, shouting, "Not good, boss." Those humans and orcs activated a teleportation array and went straight to the holding cell. All the prisoners had been rescued. The bone demon was shocked. How did they know where the holding room is? For a moment, the demons were at a loss. Should they fight or retreat? They couldn't make up their minds. Compasately smiled. "It seems that foolish dog has made contact with the rescue team." In the end, the bone demon lord made the final decision: retreat. Everyone go to the safe house and wait for orders from above. After saying that, he turned to Kunyu and said, "Horn demon, take care of the boiling blood demon. If anything happens to her, I'll take your life." Kunyu knew that, given the current situation, he couldn't reveal his allegiance, so he picked up the boiling blood demon. He shouted, "I guarantee to complete the mission." With that, Kunyu carried the boiling blood demon and charged ahead towards the safe house. It seemed like he was running the fastest. When he dived into the safe house, he slammed the door shut behind him. Outside, the demon of bones was left dumbfounded. He hadn't even gotten in the car yet. No, he hasn't even entered yet. All that awaited him was the tightly closed door. The demon of bones, unable to stop in time, crashed right into it. Meanwhile, inside the safe house, Kunyu was also stunned, because a tall figure stood in the portal before him. The one known as the Beastman's Nightmare, the overlord among demons. A berserker. The berserker looked down at Kunyu and said with a playful tone, "Boy, you left the bone demon outside." Kunyu also grew uneasy in his heart. What does this frenzied battle demon mean? Is it trying to avenge the bone demon? However, Kunyu wasn't really panicking. He knew that the reason the frenzied battle demon was inside the portal was that it was highly unlikely to come through. Otherwise, with the strength of this frenzied battle demon, It could easily wipe out the orcs. So Kinyu put down the boiling blood demon and said, "That's right, I was the one who locked it. Our mission is to rescue the boiling blood demon, not to protect the leader, isn't it?" Mad Warrior raised an eyebrow and smiled. "Kid, you're interesting.